step forward and let go of what's gonna happen. Go when you had the answer and you were there alone. You left the door unopened when you knew that you would want more. Give it up, give it up, give it away while you were barely aware. You learned that day, cut off so much, hardly remained. While you knew that there was still a way. This is your only plan. Oh, now this is your only. Now this is your only plan. Oh, now this is yours. Force it to yield, you'll forge it to the lines. You let your callous be your shield, and everyone will say that it all was finished years ago, but you will stay, and you won't ever let it go. When you had the answer and you were there alone, you left the door unopened when you knew that you would want more. Then again you found the answer and you were there alone. You left the door unopened
Alrighty, chat. Let's get started. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. You are always... Okay, whatever. Fail. So welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Dr. Alok Kanoja. Just a reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything is for educational or entertainment purposes only. If y'all have a medical concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. So today, happy Friday, everybody. So today we're doing something super cool. I'm super excited. We're gonna listen to a bunch of voicemails sent by people in our community, and then we are going to try to answer them. And the cool thing about this is that many of the voicemails that, so a lot of people submitted voicemails. There's just no humanly way to get to all of them. So first of all, if y'all submitted voicemails, thank you very much. What we try to do is pick the ones that we thought resonated the most with the challenges that people in our community face. I hope to get through a lot of them today, but as y'all know, sometimes I'm a touch long-winded, so I apologize if we don't, get to too many, but I hope we'll really get to a lot of them. Before we dive in, first thing that I want to do is talk to y'all about a couple of simple things. So we're going to just take a quick look at our schedule for the month. Let me just figure this out. Schedule. Here we go. Okay, so we had a stream with Chloe Shea yesterday. We're doing voicemails today. Deep dive into resilience on Wednesday. Live stream with Scotty K Fitness next Thursday. I'm going to be debunking terrible relationship advice. Presumably it's terrible. Maybe it's great. Who knows? I haven't seen it yet. Dealing with uncertainty with Dr. Michaela on 2 Wednesdays from now. Streaming with the Botez sisters on Thursday, May 29th, and then Doctors versus AI on May 30th. So yeah, we've got an awesome month. We're like halfway through Mental Health Awareness Month. It's something that we usually enjoy doing. I think we're enjoying it this time too. It's a lot of fun to like reconnect with y'all, kind of hang out, all of that good stuff. Let me see. Hold on a second. I messed something up. No. Oh, here we go. Here it is. Okay. Another thing that we've got, oh my God, so orange. Another thing that we do every Mental Health Awareness Month is we develop a community challenge. This is completely free for y'all to join. So in case of crash out, break glass. So this is our resilience building challenge in May. Y'all can join the Discord to just get started with this. Basically, what we try to do is build one concrete dimension of your life that will help y'all succeed in doing whatever it is that you're trying to do. The theme for May is like the world is maybe just a touch on fire. So how do y'all handle that? So there's a leaderboard, there are weekly prize drawings, there's one end of challenge prize drawing, and there are prizes based on the number of participants. So we will do various things. We've done this in the past. We still owe y'all a Tandoor stream. I know that's from like 4 years ago. But yeah, so like, I think that if we get 1,000 participants, we're going to bring chat to work day. I don't know exactly what that means. So I guess it's, an insider look at the shenanigans and decision-making of what happens behind the scenes at HG. And the way that this challenge is organized as week one is what in the actual hell. So it's about taking inventory and figuring out what's happening, what's working, what's breaking your peace. Right. So like we believe here at HG that good diagnosis precedes good treatment. That's something I learned as a medical doctor. I think it applies to all kinds of aspects of your life. So you have to understand what your problems are. I think a lot of times people will jump to solutions without trying to understand what the problem is. So week 2 is choose your own disaster. We'll clear the room for what you value, break free from things that drain you, and plan for problems. Right. So like we're going to sort of pick this. Week 2 is about focusing. Week 3 is thriving out of spite. So this is where we start to really think about like how to build positivity, how to be a little bit better, how to break self-imposed rules, things like that. And then this is fine-ish is the final week where we'll break down what we've learned into sustainable habits. And so like week 4 is, so sometimes when we do things that are good for us, right, they like flounder because we don't spend 25% of our time devoted to how do I keep this up, So what we've really tried to do this month is look at like all of the challenges that people face and what is a system that will help you, that you can learn, that will help you succeed with building resilience. So first of all, like what's the actual problem? Narrowing things down to picking one thing, learning how to succeed with that thing, make progress with that thing. And number 4 is making sure you stay with that thing going forward. Okay? So that's our big community challenge. A couple of other quick announcements before we get into it. Let me just double check. Yeah, so we have a couple of promotions running right now that I think people were a little bit confused about. So first one is $25 off Dr. K's guide. So if y'all order the whole module, it's 180 extra videos that are like edited and polished and scripted with like graphics overlays and things like that on trauma, ADHD, procrastination, depression, anxiety, meditation, trauma, ADHD, depression, anxiety, meditation. Yeah, those are the 5 guides. So y'all can get $25 off if you get the whole bundle right now. There's a 5-day free trial on memberships. Y'all have to use this on our platform, though, so this is what's kind of confusing. We have the lectures are the same on the platform or on YouTube. The big difference is that we can't do a free trial on YouTube. So if we want to do a free trial, like we have to do it, right? I don't think YouTube lets us do it, or we haven't figured out how to do it. So if y'all want to check out memberships, we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. Like some of these, like some of these membership streams, like we have a deep dive into resilience next week. And then there's $5 off each session for any kind of coaching right now. If y'all sign up for like a 20-week package, it's $100 off. So if y'all are interested in trying coaching, just give it a shot. Okay. Let me pull up my favorite chat lords and chat ladies. And then we will begin with, is there some way, how do I, no, back to chat. I wish there was some way to chat. Oh, here we go. I figured it out. Hold on. Pop out chat. Yes. Popped out chat number 1. And we're going to do popped out chat number 2. Pop out chat. Oh my God. Popped chat. Poppers. Poppers, poggers. Poppers, poggers, and everything in between. Okay. So let's get to it, chat. Okay, cool. So, okay, we're going to do something different today. We've kind of done stuff like this before. So what we asked y'all to do is send us some voicemails about what kind of problems y'all are dealing with, what you need help with. And we've got a lot of great voicemails that were submitted by the community. We're going to get to them, as many of them as we can. But I think that like the problems that people are dealing with in our community are, I don't know how to say this, the problems that people are dealing with in our community. So our hope is that, the voicemails that we're going to share with y'all today, that many of the things that these people have questions about will apply to you as well. And so we're going to do some classic old school. Dr. K is going to show up and just talk about some stuff, and hopefully we will learn something. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to do this. And let's listen to our first voicemail.
Hi, Dr. K. I'm Cherry. I used to be a hikikomori, a complete shut-in.
Too low.
I didn't have any education or...
I'm going to start over.
Hi, Dr. K. I'm Cherry. I used to be a hikikomori, a complete shut-in. I didn't have any education, nor was I working. I spent years hiding through life through gaming, internet, and substances. I pushed everyone away because I felt like facing reality felt impossible, and I just isolated myself. Now, 3 years ago, I chose to start over, and now I'm working 2 jobs. I'm studying full-time. I've rebuilt my life from scratch, basically. And I've made meaningful relationships, repaired my relationship with my parents, and I even have a healthy relationship with my boyfriend, and I even treat myself with compassion. But when I'm overwhelmed, there is this voice that creeps in. It tells me to shut down, disappear, go numb, hit the reset button. And there is a part of me that still listens. Um, Maybe it's because the chaos and self-destruction feels familiar or safe. But how do I stay connected to this life, and especially when the urge to escape feels more like home than healing I'm trying to hold on to? Or how do I stop self-sabotaging myself? Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh, okay. So this is awesome. So first of all, thank you, Cherry, for submitting a voicemail. I think this is awesome because like this is what we set out to do. I don't know if y'all realize that, but like, you know, there are all kinds of people who have all kinds of struggles in the world, right? People are hikikomoris, they're shut-ins, and they're not in education. They don't have jobs. They don't have relationships. They're basically kind of shut in and playing video games or watching anime or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with those things in isolation. And then people start to put together their lives. But the challenge is that if you're someone who puts together your life, the old you doesn't go away. Right? So we have this idea that like when we have a period of our life that we really struggle with. So I've seen a ton of patients who struggle with addiction. You know, we have this way of existing in the world. And then we have this concept that, okay, like this is the way that I'm living now. But if I fix my life, I won't slide back, right? Like once I progress, like that's the problem is we have this idea of progression and leveling up. Where like once I gain XP and I fix this problem, then the problem is fixed. We don't ever think like, okay, I'm going to get up to level 10 and then on a random weekend, I'm going to start the backslide down to level 1. And so Cherry's case, I think, is really common of someone who struggled a lot, put together their life, and yet there is a part of them that wants to get rid of self-sabotage, give up the life that they've built, which is so positive, right? And we can kind of hear it in her voicemail because she kind of says like, hey, like there are times where even though like this is what I want, there are parts of me that don't want this. There are parts of me that want to retreat. There are parts of me that like kind of want to give up, get myself shut in and things like that. Okay? So the first thing that we've got to understand is that anything that we do is actually a solution, not a problem. Any human being anywhere on the planet that is engaging in a behavior is not creating problems. That's not the way that the brain works, right? So the brain, like, even if we look at some of these drastic things like self-injurious behavior, why does a human brain want to engage in self-injurious behavior? It runs contrary to our concept of what the brain is for, right? The brain doesn't do things that mess up your life. The brain is designed to fix things in your life. And what we discover if we look at studies of self-injurious behavior is that basically self-injurious behavior is a way to regulate our emotions, to stop the tempest inside our brain. We can do it by creating a very, very localized experience of pain somewhere on our body. And what you'll notice about people who engage in self-injurious behavior is that it won't be harmful to the organism. So they'll even do things like cut. And the way that they cut is very interesting because they cut at the surface of the skin, where the nerve endings are maximum, but the damage caused to the tissue is minimum. So what they're literally trying to do is increase their experience of physical pain to get out of their head. So we look at self-injurious behavior and we think, oh my God, this is a problem. For that person in that moment, it is a solution. Now, the problem in life is that many of the solutions that we engage in create problems, worsen problems, maybe even make problems way worse. So the first thing that we've got to understand, if you're someone who is in the process of putting together your life, you'll discover that there is a weird pull back into degeneracy. There's a weird sense of like, oh my God, I'm doing everything that I wanted to do, but there's a part of you that longs to go back to square one. right? We always complain like, oh my God, I'm back to square one. How did I get here? You got there because there's a part of you that wanted to be there sometimes, okay? So now the question becomes why? And in order to understand why we want to go back to square one, we have to understand what it's like to be a hikikomori. Why do people stay shut in? What do they gain from it, right? What is the life of a hikikomori? So generally speaking, the reason that whether we're a nini, a hikikomori, a neat, like there are all kinds of terms that are sort of culture bound, but there's a common sort of root to this, which is that these are strategies to protect ourselves from the outside world, right? So if you think about a hikikomori, like the outside world is not a fun place. It's a place where I have to work, and that's not fun. It's a place where I have to deal with other people, and that's not fun. It's a place where my emotional armor is insufficient to protect me from the emotional damage that the world inflicts. Every day I go to work, I work really hard, people treat me like crap, I come home, it's not like I work towards anything, right? I'm barely maintaining my subsistence. Like, I'm not progressing in any way. I feel ashamed of myself. People don't treat me with respect. It's not like my friends are super proud of me. Even my parents, when I get back from a long day of work, my parents are going to be like, oh my God, why don't you do something with your life? Why are you working a dead-end job? Right? So this is our experience of life. So the reason that we become hikikomoris is because when we look at the experience of life, it is incredibly painful. And so over time, we discover little lessons. We discover that, okay, if I don't go to work, if I just quit my job, I don't get yelled at my boss, I don't have to do boring stuff. And it's like my parents, like whether I go to work or I don't go to work, if I don't go to work, my parents are like, oh my God, when are you going to get a job? And then if I go to work, it's like, oh my God, you have such a dead-end job. You're not going anywhere. You should do something more, go be a doctor. So if you sort of think about this person's experience of life, whether they go to work or they don't go to work, their emotional experience is not any better. And in fact, going to work makes it worse. Because if I'm going to get yelled at by my parents in either case, why would I subject myself to 8 hours of boring labor in this additional manager and social anxiety from customers or whatever, right? Like I once worked with someone who decided to quit their job because they were tired of stopping people from stealing. And they're like, this is like, I'm trying to stop this person from stealing. And then they get mad at me. And then I don't know, I get nervous and I don't know what to do. And it feels stupid to call the cops. And then if they don't do that, then their manager yells at them. And it's like, they're like, I'm not getting paid enough for this. So they just kind of peace out. So what happens in the brain is that there are all kinds of negative experiences, and then the brain learns to problem solve. So how do I deal with shame? How do I deal with my parents yelling at me? How do I deal with the social anxiety of leaving the home? And the brain figures out in the same way that if I feel hungry and I eat something, I feel better. If I'm thirsty and I drink something, I feel better. If I feel all of these negative experiences and I stop leaving the house, I stop going to work, I don't engage in education. Why? Because when I try to do school, I suck at it. Maybe I feel stupid. Maybe I look at other people who are doing better than me. Maybe I get made fun of. Maybe the teacher doesn't like me. So the brain is sitting there looking at our life and trying to think, oh my God, this is painful, 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 painful. What do I do? And so it retreats. Now, once you start to put together your life, here's the big problem. That learning hasn't gone away, right? So there's still, for many years, your neurons have repeated this behavior. They've learned this lesson over and over and over again. You have become an expert at avoidance, right? And when you become an expert at something, the brain tries to utilize that as much as possible. It's like if I'm a fighter who's a grandmaster with a pole arm, my brain is going to be like, okay, I'm not going to try to cast a cantrip because I'm way better at this skill. And this is the challenge of trying to recover from a life where things were like where you were a hikikomori or something like that, is that as you start to put together your life, your exposures from the outside world increase. Now you have a boyfriend, which is like great in many ways, but that also means you have to meet their parents. Now you're working 2 jobs, and you may have built up some degree of tolerance of going to work, but now there are larger and new emotional frontiers. Now that you've been working 2 jobs, you're up for promotion for the first time. What does that evoke? Right? So what starts to happen as we start to build our life out is the emotional challenges don't go away. Right? So the first emotional challenge was like, okay, I need to go to work. So you start doing that. And then you get used to that one. But then what happens is there are all of these additional emotional challenges. As you progress in life, in some ways, things don't get easier. You just get better at dealing with them. Actually, what happens with most people is things get harder in life. Does life get better? Yes. But life also continues to get harder. Now you have a boyfriend. Now you potentially have in-laws. Now you have to think about someone else. Now you have 2 jobs. Neither boss cares about the other one, right? They just want to make sure that you are doing their thing first. So when I was finishing residency, I was interested in complementary and alternative medicine. And so that's not like a full-time job somewhere. So I went to a couple of different Harvard teaching hospitals and tried to set up like basically 2 or 3 part-time jobs. I was going to do some part-time complementary and alternative medicine inpatient consults at a place called McLean Hospital. I was going to have an outpatient clinic, so some inpatient work and some outpatient work at Massachusetts General Hospital. And there was a third place called the Benson Henry Institute where I was going to do program development and research. So I went to one of my mentors and I said, look, I've put together this plan. It's awesome. It's basically, I'm going to be doing complementary alternative medicine all the time. And none of these institutions can support a full-time person. So I'm going to 3 places and I'm going to do basically 50% of a job in 3 places. And my boss told me something really great that stuck with me. He's like, this sounds great, but you're going to run into a lot of trouble. And then I said, why am I going to run into trouble? And he said, because none of your bosses is going to give a fuck about your other bosses. Right? All they care about is your productivity there. And it's like, you're here to do this job. We want you to do a great job at this job. And this is Harvard. So even having a part-time job there means you're having a full-time job because expectations are super high. So it's like, you got to be really careful about this because if you have a crunch deadline for a research paper, the people on the inpatient unit don't care about that. They have patients who are hospitalized. They want you to come see them. And when things are falling apart on the inpatient side and you've got an outpatient schedule and you take a break for a week from a conference, the outpatient people don't care about that. All they know is that for 1 week, you're not earning revenue. You're not generating money for the clinic. That's what they're going to see. They don't care that you're doing something productive over there. They're paying you to generate a certain amount of FTE here. So as you progress in life, you face new challenges. And as you face new and unfamiliar and scary challenges, you have this programming in your brain that wants to return to your protective behaviors. Because if you disappear, if you stay at home, if you engage in video games or anime or whatever, if you forget about the world for 12 hours, 16 hours at a time, then that works. Right? That is what your brain has learned makes the bad emotions go away. So even as we start to progress in life, the echoes of our past behavior will continue. So how do we deal with this? This is super cool. We don't have to do much, honestly. So the key thing here is that whatever we do engage in neurologically will strengthen over time, right? So if I need my blankie to go to sleep, it'll be hard to sleep without my blankie. As I become more dependent on my blankie, I need my blankie. But the cool thing is that if I stop using my blankie, the first night it'll be really hard for me to sleep. The second night it'll be really hard for me to sleep. The third night it'll be hard for me to sleep. But then it gets easier over time. This extinguishes. So any behavior that worked for us will slowly extinguish over time. The desire for those behaviors will slowly go down over time. I see this all the time in patients that I work with addictions, where at the beginning, when you're taking a break from alcohol, you're thinking about drinking all the time. And then over time, 5 years later, 6 years later, 8 years later, most of my patients will say, I don't even think about it. It doesn't even cross my mind. So there is a natural extinguishing process that goes on in the brain. So the main thing that you need to do, if you're putting together your life, but there are echoes of your past bad behavior that keep on popping up in your head, what you need more than anything else is patience. Recognize that every time you don't give in, it gets weaker. And every time you do give in, it gets stronger. And this is why it's so hard to break in the first place, because you gave into it and it grows, right? So you feed it, you give it what it wants. And whatever you give into in your mind will grow, right? You're reinforcing that behavior. So whatever you feed will grow. And if it wants something and you give it what it wants, it'll grow. And the cool thing is this is true of good things too. So the more that you practice patience, the more that you practice compassion, these parts of your brain will actually strengthen. And it'll be easier to be patient. It'll be easier to be compassionate. The last kind of perspective to take here, which I think is basically consistent with the neurological one, is a karmic perspective. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction. All actions have consequences. And when I give in to my avoidant feelings, those avoidant feelings will grow. I am sowing a negative karma. It's not really negative. We make that value judgment. But if I give in to avoidance, I will become more avoidant. If I give in to avoidance and don't deal with my problems, don't substantially try to improve my life, then what kind of life will I inherit? It won't be a good life, right? If I don't put effort into improving it, it won't get better. And similarly, when it comes to karma, every time you give in to something bad, you are signing yourself up for a future struggle against that thing. That is the karmic perspective, also completely consistent with neuroscience, right? Every time I eat fast food, I am developing a craving for future fast food. So if you guys want a really powerful technique to deal with this once and for all, the goal is not solving this problem in this moment. It is not resisting now or giving in now, giving into avoidance or not giving into avoidance. It is recognizing that every moment in your life, you are signing yourself up for a future problem or a future easy life. Every decision that you make today is going to inform the life that you inherit tomorrow. So literally the other day, I ate something unhealthy. And it ruined my meditation for the next 24 hours. The moment that I choose to give into that desire from a veggie pizza from Taco Bell, which is my one indulgence that I engage in maybe a couple times a year, it like ruins the next 24 hours. It's like GG. But I'm Indian and I love it and I grew up on that shit. And yet it has consequences. Right? So what I want y'all to really think about is when you're dealing with a problem, how am I being shaped for tomorrow? What is this doing for tomorrow? If I give into this thing now, what kinds of problems will it create for me? And on the flip side, if you're someone who has put together your life, recognize that all of these habits are still there. They're decaying very slowly, which is totally fine, right? So they'll continue to decay slowly. And as long as you don't give into them, they'll basically die down and disappear entirely. Okay? Taco Bell is like, it's so good and it's so bad. I don't know if y'all remember this, but Taco Bell canceled the Mexican pizza as a product, and the Indians in the United States went into revolt. And it's funny because I hadn't had a Mexican pizza for years. And then after they canceled it, and then like 8 or 9 months later, they brought it back and they were sold out everywhere. And so I had one a celebratory and then now I've had them like maybe, I don't know, they brought it back maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And now I've had maybe like 8 or 9 of them. And like sometimes they disappoint, but not usually. Yeah, it's terrible for everything, not just the digestive system. My digestive system can handle it, man. I'm a degenerate gamer. My gut bacteria were built off of LAN parties, Mountain Dew, and Taco Bell. Okay, Yeah, I read the chat intermittently. Aditya, I see you, Aditya. I see you are there. You should be studying, na, Aditya? Come on, man. Okay, next one.
Hi, Dr. K. So, I'm a woman of color living in a predominantly white country, and I've kind of internalized the idea that I'm less desirable because I don't fit the Eurocentric beauty standards. And every single time I interact with a white person, whether that's romantically or not, but especially in dating contexts, I feel like all they see is someone who is another and not someone they genuinely desire to connect with. How do I start to unpack this internalized racism and stop it from eroding my self worth and ability to form healthy relationships and ultimately not live in fear and feel comfortable in my own body?
Okay, this is a great question. So, this is a case of someone who is a person of color living in a predominantly it sounds like they're living in like a Eurocentric kind of place, right? So maybe they live in Europe. And they feel like they don't fit into the beauty standards that are common in that region. And so if you're someone who doesn't fit into traditional beauty standards and you go out into the dating world and you may date particular people, all you can sort of see is like how can I say this? The non-attractive version of yourself, right? So when you move out into the world, if you don't meet traditional beauty standards, you kind of see yourself as unattractive. And maybe you have plenty of evidence to believe that you are unattractive, right? So we know that there's something called pretty privilege, and we know that if you are physically attractive, all kinds of things become easier for you. So there's probably some real world evidence of that, right? It's not all in your head. At the same time, even though it's not all in your head, the whole problem is that once you experience these things, something starts to grow independently within your head. Okay? So let's take a look at this. So let's understand how the mind works with internalizing racism, which I wouldn't even focus on the racism part. I don't think that's, I know it's kind of weird, but so I don't think it matters what, it doesn't have to be racist, right? The whole point is that when you are treated a certain way, you will internalize that. So if you grow up in an abusive household and you're told you're stupid, you will internalize that. If you grow up with a sibling who's the golden child and you're the black sheep, you will sort of carry that with you. If you grow up in a situation where you are viewed based on the color and treated based on the color of your skin, that is what you will internalize, right? You can grow up anywhere. Whatever, the way that people treat you is what you will internalize. So here's you. And then you will interact with various people. And then they will react to you in certain ways. So they'll react to you, let's say, negatively, let's say neutral. Okay? And then those reactions then end up entering your mind, right? So you learn, and this is normal, this is healthy, this is adaptive. So if I learn, for example, that this is why peer pressure is a thing. If I learn that human beings value a certain kind of physical appearance or a certain kind of shoes, and if I get those shoes, then I will be treated differently. So all of our life, this is what I want y'all to understand. We are interacting with the outside world. And we're receiving information. We send something out there, they send something back to us. And this is how we learn. Now, as we internalize things, there becomes a huge problem. Because what we internalize is not correct. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that we have a cognitive bias, especially towards negative things. So the moment that I have a seed of inferiority, once I start to feel like I am not pretty, once I start to feel like people are judging me based on my race. Here's the problem. We have a negative bias. Okay? So if there are 3 people and I interact with all 3 of them, and 2 of them treat me positively, and 1 of them treats me negatively, it's not a 1-to-1. So these don't cancel out. We don't think to ourselves, oh my God, like 2/3 of people like me, 2/3 of people are not racist, 2/3 of people think I'm fine, and so that's okay. That's not what we think. What happens is this outweighs these 2. So then what happens is I start to feel more inferior. And the more inferior I feel, the greater my cognitive bias grows. So then this creates a cycle that results in things that are very similar to this voicemail, where people then start to perceive themselves. So let me show you all let me pull up a paper real quick. It'll illustrate this. Okay. So hold on a second. Find this. Oh, here we go. Okay. So here's the paper. So let's understand what happens. Okay. So this is affective eye contact and integrative review. So if we listen to this voicemail, this is about my perception of how other people perceive me. And it becomes internalized racism. So how do we deal with that? So the first thing that we have to understand is this process of internalization and what's literally happening in our mind. Okay. So when someone looks at us, we have a perception of another person's attention. And this is what's really interesting. When someone looks at me, I do not see what they see. I see what I think they see is the way I view myself. Right? So I know this is kind of confusing, but like this triggers something called self-referential processing. So this is kind of confusing. So let's say I'm over here and someone looks at me. What do I imagine they see? Because I don't know what they actually see. What I actually think they see is the way that I see myself. So these 2 things, this thing over here and what I see when I look in a mirror, let's say here's a mirror, both of these things are the same. So when I feel like I am ugly and someone else looks at me, I don't consider whether this person thinks I'm ugly. I don't see myself through their eyes. This is what I'm trying to get to. When someone looks at you, you don't see yourself through their eyes. You see yourself through your own eyes. This is what happens. Like literally, we trigger when someone else is looking at us, we trigger, what that triggers in our brain is the way that we think about ourselves. So it is self-referential processing. This is why I can go through a whole party with spinach in my teeth and be totally fine. And then the moment that I realize I see there's spinach in my teeth, now I feel like an idiot. Even if no one else can see it. I see it in the bathroom that is well lit and we're all outside and there's like some dim lighting and some cool like, party lighting and some disco light or whatever. No one can see the spinach in my teeth, but that's not the way that I see it. So if you're struggling because you feel like you are being judged, there are absolutely racist people out there, 100%. And countries can be racist, or majority of people in countries can be racist. There are absolutely beauty standards that people live up to, that people expect, right? There's like an accepted beauty standard, which is a particular way. And there are also these two mechanisms. So if your question is, how do I fix this? There are two major things that you need to do. One is be careful about the cognitive bias. And what do I mean by that? When you go through the world and you interact with three people, at the end of these interactions, you will feel like no one finds you attractive. But if you go back and critically examine these interactions, you'll find that much more of them are positive than you originally realized. And this is like literally how cognitive bias works. This is what we do in psychotherapy. Like, so another example of this is, let's use the case of narcissism and cognitive bias. So I hang out with this person, I hang out with this person, and then I end up thinking, oh my God, both of these people are really mean and they're terrible human beings. And they did really bad things. And if we go back and we examine things with a narcissist, what we'll discover is that these two people were not necessarily bad. I'm the bad one. Right? So this is the case of narcissism, where there's a cognitive bias as well. But the cognitive bias in narcissism is I'm going to blame everyone else and I'm not at fault at all. And the cognitive bias when there's low self-worth is that we are going to filter out information that supports our self-worth. So this is what's kind of weird, but see, most human beings do not use evidence to form their view. They use their view to shape the evidence. Evidence doesn't shape my view shapes the evidence. This is why there are so many people who are convinced they're right, even when they're wrong. And when you tell them something that is contrary to their belief, then they will discard it. So I would bet money that if you're a human being who is dealing with racism, even listening to my explanation, you will say, Dr. K, you don't understand. The beauty standards are this way. I know what my life is like. You're wrong. This doesn't work. It's not in my head. This is a real thing that I deal with. And notice what's happening. You immediately discard what I have to say. And if you immediately discard evidence that moves in the opposite direction, where will you end up? I'm not saying that racism isn't real. Racism is real. People are racist. There's systemic racism. And not everyone is a racist, unless you're in like a highly racist country or something like that. Right? So that's possible. But generally speaking, just because racism is real, that enhances this effect. It doesn't deplete it. So you internalize that, and then you start to see yourself through their eyes. So the first thing that you have to do is be critical. And one of the biggest challenges that I faced as a therapist, as a psychiatrist, is when I have a patient who lives in a world where there is real racism, but they blame most of the way that people respond to them as racism. So just because the world is racist doesn't mean that you can't be an asshole. Both of those things can be true at the same time. And just because racism exists in workplaces doesn't mean that anyone who gets promoted above you is getting promoted because of racism. And this goes both ways, by the way. It's not like black people, white people, brown people. It's like a lot of people will say like, oh my God, this person just got hired because they're a DEI hire. Like I've had white people come into my office and tell me this. And then as we critically examined, they discovered, oh no, they're not just getting hired as a DEI hire. They're getting hired because they're doing better than me. It's like wild. And the flip can also be true. Just because a white man gets promoted and you don't, that doesn't automatically mean that the answer is racism. How do we know if it's racism or it's on you? We have to do this exercise, right? We have to be critical. And critical does not mean the first thing that pops into your head. Critical means let me try to find as much evidence as I can. Let me take a fine-toothed comb, go through my life and try to find as much contrary evidence as I can. to look for it, to steel man the argument. And when I'm working with patients with depression, we'll explore a little bit about, okay, everyone thinks you're a terrible human being. Help me understand how you know that. Well, they said this, and they said this, and they said this. And I was like, okay, like, is there any evidence? Is there anyone that doesn't think you're a terrible human being? Who are they? Well, this person got me a birthday gift. And this person calls me and asks me how I'm doing. And this person is always down to hang out. The problem is that that information is automatically filtered out of your brain. Automatically. The moment that you have low self-worth and you trigger self-referential processing, all of these things start to happen. So it's a lot of work. Now, the second problem that we run into when we do this is not the second thing we need to do. Second problem that we run into is cognitive dissonance. So if I grow up thinking I'm ugly, and y'all may have been in this situation before, right? Where you grow up thinking you're ugly. I certainly was. Like, I got bullied a lot, never had a girlfriend, never went on dates when I was like in high school, middle school, etc. Right? So I grew up thinking I was ugly. And then what happens is, like, if I encounter people who don't treat me like I'm ugly, it gets really confusing. So one thing to understand is the brain values certainty more than good. The brain would prefer a known bad quantity to an unknown good quantity. So as you engage in this, there's going to be a lot of pushback from your brain. And sometimes it takes years, right? So another good example of this, like, cognitive dissonance thing is people with borderline personality disorder who have a fear of abandonment. 1 year into a relationship, they're like, the person is like, hey, I want to marry you. And they're like, oh my God, you're going to abandon me. So at the 2-year mark, it takes 2 years of positive information with 0 abandonments to improve borderline personality disorder in 50% of people. 50% of people, after 2 years of a committed relationship, they still have the fear of abandonment. They still think their partner is going to abandon them. At the drop of a hat, they're just waiting for the shoe to fall. And it takes something like 16 years for this number to get to 95%, 98%, something like that. It takes 16 years to get rid of that fear of abandonment. And that's like, this person hasn't abandoned you for 16 years. Actually, that's not technically correct. This is 16 years later, so it's not clear that you've been in one relationship for those 16 years. A significantly inappropriate interpretation of the evidence, but 16 years later, this is apples and oranges is what I mean to say. 16 years after you get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, 95% of people are better. That's the technical term. But that's how long it takes, right? So you have to get contrary evidence for years. And it happens naturally. So if you focus on it, if you engage in this practice, and you are aware of the cognitive dissonance that you're going to face, then it happens way faster, right? If you get into therapy for borderline personality disorder, you can get better way faster. If you are intentional and careful about the way that you interpret other people's reactions to you, you will get better way faster. The other thing is, remember, this perception is heavily influenced by self-referential processing. So the problem here, we can call it internalized racism, but I think it's like more, it runs even deeper than that. Internalized racism is just one form of it. And the real issue is low self-worth. So I would bet money that if I had the opportunity to talk to this person and I asked them, tell me about you, the number one thing that they have trouble seeing is their own beauty. The number one thing that they, like, their self-worth is in the pits. And that's not their fault. There's a decent chance that the reason their self-worth is in the pits is because they don't live up to the standard Eurocentric beauty standard. But here's the other crazy thing. I know it's wild. There are a lot of people out there who live up to the beauty standards and even are the people who are at the front of the pack, determine the beauty standards, are on the covers of magazines, are on TV shows, are popular streamers who also don't believe they're beautiful. In fact, there is even some data that the more you fit that beauty standard, and the more famous you are, the more you're a model, the greater the likelihood is that you believe you are incredibly ugly, have body dysmorphia, have anorexia, have all kinds of other problems. Like, it's wild, right? So you can be someone who doesn't fit the beauty standard, someone who does fit the beauty standard. In both cases, you can have low self-worth. And you may ask me, well, hold on a second, Dr. K, how is that possible? And now y'all tell me, how is this possible? The only way it is possible is if the problem is in your head. The problem is an issue of cognitive bias, right? If we say that factually, these two people are very different in terms of the beauty standard, the only explanation is that your individual contribution is major. And now you may ask yourself, hold on, Dr. K, but aren't there beautiful people who don't have low self-worth? And the answer is absolutely yes. So now we get to something super fun. What is the difference between a beautiful person who believes they're beautiful and a beautiful person who believes they're ugly? What's the difference? Their mental calculations, the way they perceive the world, the way they perceive information, right? So it comes down to what is in you. That's the difference. Are there people who don't meet a Eurocentric beauty standard and are confident in who they are and are able to engage in healthy romantic relationships? Yes. Are there people who don't live up to the Eurocentric beauty standard and struggle with self-worth and can't engage in healthy relationships? Also, yes. And if both of these people live in the same society, the objective amount of racism that they experience is in the roughly the same ballpark. So then what accounts for the difference? The difference is what is in your head. And that is the only thing that you can control. So focus on the roots of your low self-worth. When did you first start to believe that you were not beautiful? And when I work with people like this, I'm shocked. Because oftentimes the root isn't in the way that they were treated in a racist fashion. Oftentimes the root is in their own household. The way their parents view them. Oh my God, you're dark-skinned. Oh, she's so dark-skinned, it's going to be hard. Oh, don't wear this color. Your skin is too dark. It starts there. So you'd be stunned where the seeds of these things grow. Is the fertilizer, the water, the sunlight, is the society you live in? Fair enough. But you'd be amazed. And this is also why people get stuck in this pattern, is because they're thinking that they're confusing the root with the fertilizer. And if you want to fix your problem, fix it at the root. Now, there are absolutely cases, like I grew up with a lot of racism, got bullied every day, ha ha ha. You're a Hindu? You worship cows? Look, I'm eating your God. Ha 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 ha. Your God is delicious. This hamburger is delicious. That's why I grew up with that crap too. So, being in Texas with barbecue and brisket, it's just going to happen. And ignorant people. So the key thing here is, I know it's hard, but if you want to get out of this, you have to understand this really important principle. Focus on the root of your self-worth and be critical about the way that you move in the world. And don't just accept the default interpretation that your mind makes. It's okay. I'm fine with that experience. Traumatizing, yes and no. There's another, important thing here that I'm okay with the difficult upbringing I had. In many ways, my upbringing was great. In many ways, it sucked, and that's okay. It made me the person that I am. I don't regret it or wish it was different in any way. So I appreciate the good vibes, but it's all right.
Hi, Dr. K. My question is related to your live stream with Mr. Who's the Boss. I'm an overthinker myself, and the video resonates strongly with me. My issue is that whilst I am similar to Mr. Who's the Boss and I overthink a lot, I don't have the same kind of drive to achieve like he does. It seems like he overthinks in order to solve his problems, but I feel like I overthink and then eventually decide that it's all too much effort. I often find myself coming to a place where I believe there are no right answers. Maybe I'm being too detached or thinking too much about the big picture rather than personally. I'm not really sure. It's making me feel stuck and leads me to inaction in both creative and work endeavors. Thanks so much. I'm a huge fan and I meditate every day now. Thank you to you.
Cool. Okay. So really, really fascinating, okay? This is a case of someone who overthinks. But their overthinking leads to a paralysis of action. And if y'all listen to our Mr. Who's the Boss interview, what y'all also heard is that Mr. Who's the Boss overthinks a lot, thinks a ton. But somehow he's able to take that overthinking and turn it into productivity. And many of us will overthink, and it will paralyze us. It will lead to things like procrastination. It'll lead to things like there's no right answer. Right? So we'll overthink, and then we kind of get to this conclusion. Right? So like we overthink. So these things kind of come together. And if you stop and think about it, it's kind of weird. Because if there's no right answer, it doesn't matter what you do. Right? You can just do whatever. There's no right, there's no wrong. So just do whatever. It's like when I go to a restaurant and I look at the menu and it's like, there's no like great thing that appeals to me. In theory, I should be able to act very easily if there is no right answer. So here's the key thing to understand. Overthinking is a tool. It is not a direction. Right? So I want y'all to understand that your mind and your capacity for thought does not give you direction. It's a car. It's not a map or a compass. This is very important to understand. So if we look at human behavior, if we look at the way that human beings work, thought is not a goal. It is not a place that you start. It is a mechanism to help you achieve a goal, right? So if I'm here and I want to go here, and I'm trying to problem solve, then the thought will help me get there. But the thought doesn't give me the direction. This is already determined by something else. So thought is a mechanism. It's a tool. And the difference between Mr. Who's the Boss and many other people is that his tool is harnessed. So here's the other thing about thought and overthinking. So thinking is a lot like cultivating a garden. Where if I have like a plant, right, and I have a plant over here or whatever, I have all these plants. If I don't prune the plants in the right way, they will just start duplicating all over the place. These will be weeds. Right? So one thought leads to another thought, leads to another thought, leads to another thought. Like that's just what's going to happen. They're going to just keep spiraling into more and more thoughts. And then despite all of the thoughts that you have, there's never any like conclusion, right? That's how you end up with there's no right answer. Because you can think about things in this direction, or you can think about things in this direction. And both of them can work. Should I break up with this person or should I not break up with this person? On the one hand, Or which person should I date? Should I date this person? Should I date this person? I like this person for these things. I like this person for these things. You make pros and cons lists, and frequently pros and cons lists don't change behavior. So the difference is that if we're not careful, overthinking will induce procrastination. Because I see things, I can do it this way, I can do it this way. Both options are doable. There's no right answer. And we think that if we find a right answer logically, then that will create motivation. There is no stupider thought in the history of humanity. To think that if you find the right answer, you will act. For evidence, Your Honor, I submit Exhibit 1, which is the behavior of the human race. Everyone knows you shouldn't smoke. Everyone knows you should exercise. Everyone knows you should eat a ton of fruits and vegetables. Everyone knows you should go to bed on time. Everyone knows logically that you should work hard, you should balance things, you should be resilient, you should meditate every day. Everybody knows all of this. We all know what the right answer is, and yet no one does it. To believe that logic will lead you to action is stupid. If that were true, the world would be a different place. It is actually the other way around. Action induces logic. I decided I'm not going to vaccinate my kids. Once I make that decision, then I will have all kinds of logic for it. The other big problem with logic is that human logic is not logical. What is the apparatus that determines our logic? It's a sack of meat inside our skull that is tightly connected to our default mode network, our sense of our identity, our amygdala, our limbic system, all of these things. If you have someone who's very, very angry and you tell them that they are not logical, they will never believe you. If you have someone who is hopelessly depressed and you tell them you have many reasons to live, they won't believe you. Literally, if we look at the brain, the logical circuits of our brain are influenced or even controlled by our emotional circuitry. As our emotional circuitry becomes more active, our logic shuts down. So whether you are logical or not logical depends on the strength of the balance between your logical circuitry and your emotional circuitry. There is a war between your logic and your emotions. And depending on which way this goes, right, is the alligator eating this way or is the alligator eating that way? That will determine what's really going on with you. So what happens with people who are overthinkers is they have a very powerful mind that has no direction. So it's like if I take a husky and it has nowhere to run, nothing to dig up, nothing to eat, and I leave it trapped in the house, what is going to happen in my house? It's going to tear the house apart. It's going to tear up my pillows. It's going to poop all over everything. It's going to be a mess. So what I tend to see a lot is there are a lot of people out there who have very powerful minds. And since you have a powerful mind, you leverage it a lot. You start to lean into it a lot. You specialize in it. You feed your mind all kinds of things, right? Like, so you're like feeding your mind like video games and like theory crafting and ask philosophy and like metaphysics and like quantum mechanics without a PhD. I learned my, yo, bitches, I learned my quantum mechanics on Reddit. I don't need no PhD. I got my degree from the University of the YouTube. That's where I got the School of Hard Knocks on YouTube. And so once our mind has nowhere to go, it starts to become like a garden overrun with weeds. There's no cultivation of thought in the right direction. The mind just runs in 1,000 different directions. And when you have weeds that propagate all over your garden, it's not a garden anymore. It becomes like a jungle. And this is what our life becomes. It's procrastinating. We're procrastinating. We're not doing anything. We just have all these thoughts. And they're just like going all these different places. And like, yeah, like the weed can infect over here. And I can think like, oh, this is a good thing to do. This is a good thing to do. I could do this. I could do this. It's just a completely unregulated mind. So there are two things we can do if you are an overthinker. The first most important thing that you can do, that'll make things very easy, is give your mind a direction. You have to give it a direction. It can't give you a direction. If I take my dog for a walk, it's going to take me for a walk, but we're not going to go for a walk. We're just going to randomly go wherever the dog feels like. Right? So if you want to cultivate a garden, you have to do the cultivation. The vision and the direction have to come from you, not your mind. Now, then you may ask the question, what are you and what's your mind? So I don't know if we're going to get to that today, but that's like a lot of these fundamentals that we teach, right? So what is the self? What is the nature of self? We have a lot of awesome deep dives into ego and stuff. Check it out on the main YouTube channel. There's also a lot of like advanced stuff on the membership side that's a little bit more comprehensive and complete. So we have some cool lectures that we can show you all in a second, or I'll show you all the links and stuff. But the first thing is the direction has to come from you. So where does direction come from? Direction comes from emotion. Direction comes from purpose. Direction comes from within. Right? So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, but wanting something, having a desire is a short-term direction, because the moment that you fulfill the desire, the direction will disappear. Right? So to really stop and think about a vision of life. So when we were designing our coaching program, what I really tried to focus on is what is the North Star that'll create the right kind of behavioral change. And it turns out that purpose is the most important thing for us. Or not the most important, one of the 3 or 4 most important things. And so our focus was not on reductions in depression and anxiety. Those get to drop between 20 and 40%. After about 16 weeks of coaching. Main thing is sense of purpose and direction goes up by 68% in our pilot study. Because if you give someone a direction, then all of the tools are moving in the right direction. Right? If I have like a house full of kids, they're going to tear the place apart. But if I say, hey, we're going to go play football, let's all go outside. And then if you can organize all the children, then they'll like be productive. So in that way, you have to really think about, okay, what am I doing here? What do I want? What's my purpose in life? In the moment that you do that, and if you look at Mr. Who's the Boss, he has a very clear direction. So the overthinking becomes a tool instead of a hindrance. Now the question becomes, how do I discover what I want in life? So this is where if you want to know what you want in life, you have to know who you are. Okay, so I'll give you all, let's take a look at this. What the hell does that mean, Dr. K? So purpose comes from within. Oh, I mean, literally. So here's what's going to happen. Here's a human being. And then we have the world, which is sending them signals. Buy this game. Look this way. Become an alpha. Eat at Chili's. Eat at Taco Bell. Get mad at this political party. This political party is bad. We have the world telling us what we want all the time. Now, the problem is that if we look at the brain, anytime we satisfy one of these desires, right? So let's say the world tells me to eat more Taco Bell, and I eat more Taco Bell. But then, like, once I'm done, then I'm just not doing anything. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll eat at Chili's. And then I'm not doing anything. Once I become an alpha, then I'm not doing anything. So if you sort of think about it, like, I don't know if this kind of makes sense. It's like so simple, but like, if your direction in life is coming from the outside, the moment that you check that box, you will stop moving. Or the moment that something else dominates your attention, you'll move in that direction. I want to be a millionaire. It's like, yeah, that motivates me. I want to be a millionaire until I see an advertisement for a video game. So then you get pulled by your senses in 1,000 different directions. And then we call this procrastination. What is procrastination? Procrastination is an absence of movement. Or procrastination is a movement in one way. I started studying and then I stopped studying. I was going to study, but then I played video games. If we really look at procrastination very technically, it is not an absence of movement. It is movement in a very diffuse way. We are dispersing our energy. Instead of being a laser beam, we're a light bulb. One can cut through diamond. One can illuminate stuff. Huge difference. One can see and one can do. See, this person is really great at watching other people do something, isn't it? So your mind should be one-pointed. So there are two ways to do that. One is to practice dharana, which is to literally practice one-pointedness or focus of the mind. The second thing that you can do is look for an answer from within. Look for the answer that comes in here. What do you want? Now, you have to be careful because this stuff will infect your head. And you'll think, oh, I want games, I want women, I want men, I want money, I want this. That's all through the senses. So look for a direction that does not come from a sensory organ. If you heard about it, if you saw someone else have it, if you got told about it, it doesn't work. That's outside stuff. Literally, like technically. Doesn't count. Look within. Now, how do you look within? Simplest thing is to sit in silence until you hear something on the inside. Best way to do it. So what you'll find if you sit in silence, we had a great memberships lecture on the Anahat Chakra. If y'all are interested, this is a good thing to do. It's the heart chakra. So if you do heart chakra meditation practices, you will discover what you want in life. And once you have the internal drive, then you will have consistent action. Then the mind becomes a tool. Right? Then you have a GPS destination, and then the car will start consistently moving in the right direction. Otherwise, we're just driving around in the parking lot. So you can sit in a place where it is quiet. And what you will notice, close your eyes, what you'll notice is you will want all kinds of things. You will want to move. You will want to stop. This will feel like a waste of time. You will want all kinds of things. Wanting. But if you engage in those wants, you can even try it if you want to. What you'll discover is it won't help you in any way. It'll just alleviate a temporary thing. I feel like moving. I feel like stopping. I feel like playing a video game. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to play a video game. Tomorrow, I'm back to square one. Doesn't actually move me forward in any way in life. So you sit in silence until you get something from the inside, an internal drive. And how long does that take? I don't know. Depends on you. Just sit in silence until you discover. Now, many people will require some degree of drastic investment in this. So in my case, I found silence by traveling to India and staying in an ashram for 90 days. Dedicated practice for 90 days. You don't have to do that. But then you should sit in silence for an extended period of time in your daily life. Find time to be quiet. And then your senses, the desires of the senses will leave, and what your dharma is, what your purpose is, what your calling is, comes from within. You are called from within. Desires and sensory organs don't give you direction. Or they give you temporary direction. So if you're struggling with overthinking, find who you are, find that internal voice, find that internal purpose by just being silent. If y'all want more technical stuff, check out the Anahat Chakra lecture. Let me just pull these up because I'm mentioning a couple of things. Let me see if I can find it. And if y'all are wondering, why don't we make Anahat Chakras lectures on the YouTube channel, the main channel? It's because it kills our content algorithms. I can't find it. It's here though. Hold on. Okay. So deep dive into so there's a lecture called Deep Dive into the Heart Chakra and Self-Compassion. So we go into stuff there. There's also stuff in Dr. K's guide about heart chakra meditations. We've taught some of these things on stream. I think there's some stuff on the YouTube channel, so y'all can check that out too. Okay? Let's move on.
Hey, Dr. K. I'm Honey. First of all, I'd like to thank you. Thanks to what you do, I'm now in a position in life where I achieved many of the things I set out to do 2 or 3 years ago. After being stuck for close to 5 years, I finally recently relocated to a different town. I got a new job that I studied for over years in my off time. I'm very grateful
Chad, move.
for what I have, but I'm also still moving. I'm now making small steps in being a content creator to hopefully someday be an inspiration for others and living proof that anyone can do it. But one of my remaining challenges is that I still have these big ambitions in life, where at the same time I understand intellectually that I do not control the outcome of any of my efforts. But how do I reconcile these two things? How do I accept that I still have goals in life and detach from them at the same time? I cannot reconcile these two things emotionally. Thank you for listening, and I hope this will help someone else too.
Cool. Awesome, Honey. So first of all, huge shout out to people in the community doing good stuff in their life, right? That's what we're here for. Makes me so happy to hear when people are like, you know, I was floundering for a couple of years and then I studied things in my own free time. And then like I, you know, got a job now. I've moved. My life is moving in the right direction. Great, dude. That's why we're here. So thank y'all so much for putting in the time and effort. Makes me feel like I'm doing good work here, which also makes me feel motivated to keep doing the work that I'm going to do. So huge shout out to Honey. Now, Honey says, okay, Honey's moving in the right direction, right? And many of y'all are now. We're not the same set of degenerates that we used to be when we started. Although if you are still in the same place you started, that's okay. Be patient with yourself. And if you're new to the community and you're a degenerate, welcome. You're 100% welcome here. Okay? Stick with us for a while. Apparently, we're onto something. And this is what's actually really cool about this. It's kind of wild, right? But here's the thing. Change takes time. And the cool thing is now we've been around long enough for people to change, where we're kind of sprinkling some fertilizer into their life. They do most of the effort, right? Like you can't just watch this and then like wake up tomorrow and be transformed. It doesn't work like that. But we've been around long enough to where people can actually like implement some change in their life. And since it takes time, we're starting to see those changes. A lot of people are getting a lot better by just hanging out in the community for a while, meditating every day, like whatever. And y'all will notice, by the way, that y'all will notice certain threads, right? So like some people, even though it's hard, will start acting. Some people will meditate every day. They start doing these things that feel insignificant, but you don't realize what it takes to actually move yourself forward. A lot of the work that will move you forward is not something that your mind thinks will move you forward. Anyway, so cool. I'm glad that y'all are getting better. Now let's talk about Honey's problem, which is, okay, got some of my basics down, got a job, I'm moving in the right direction. I have certain aspirations. I want to help other people. I want to be a content creator. I have these ambitious goals. And yet I know intellectually that I can't control them, right? Just because you want to be a successful content creator who helps other people on the internet doesn't mean that you can be, right? There's no way to control that. So how do you manage or balance the ambition of wanting to achieve a goal with the reality that you may never succeed? Because if we think about it, it's tough, right? Because if I want to achieve something, that ambition, that drive for success motivates me to act. But if I think to myself, hold on a second, this may never work out, then that destroys my motivation. How many people here are motivated to dig for pirate treasure in their backyard? Not very many. How many people have done it? Why don't you do it? Because you think the likelihood of success is low. If I were to tell you, oh yeah, you know that guy who lost that hard drive? He threw away a hard drive that had a Bitcoin wallet that has like 30,000 Bitcoin. And to this day, this guy is like apparently wandering through dumpsters looking for a hard drive that has his Bitcoin on it. If I were to tell you, hey, that Bitcoin is buried in your backyard, then maybe you're motivated. Right? And then if I gave you evidence that made you think that maybe it's in your backyard. So like the more that the likelihood of success increases your mind, the more motivated you are, which is neuroscience, by the way. So we're really careful as animals that the likelihood of success determines our motivation towards something. So how do I retain some ambition, but also acknowledge that maybe it won't work? And this is where this is cool, right? So now that y'all have a couple of the basics, let's go a little bit deeper. Who has the motivation? Who has the ambition? Right? So if you pay attention, Honey says, intellectually, I know that I can't achieve everything that I put my mind to, or maybe even anything that I put my mind to. So if y'all want to understand how to reconcile conflict within yourself, you have to understand that the conflict comes from different places. Where does ambition come from? I want to help someone else. I want to help a lot of people. I want to be a content creator and help 1 million people on the internet. Where does this come from? So you can strive to help 1 million people on the internet. That comes from the ego, usually. You can have this is what I sort of, I don't know how to, this is going to be hard to explain. So first thing to understand is there are multiple dimensions within us. There's our ego. There are unfulfilled desires, and these will transform into ambitions. So first is like, where does an ambition come from? Okay? Well, let me try to, this is going to be tricky. We're going to do it, chat. Okay? We're going to do our best. So I have an ambition. Where does ambition come from? So sometimes ambition comes from, I am deficient. If you believe this about yourself and you achieve your ambition, I am no longer deficient. So I see this a lot with people who are like obsessed with being virgins. They're like, I am a loser, right? So I am a loser. And what they do is they make an association with getting laid. I am a winner. Right? So I don't know if this makes sense, but they tie this with this. But like, this is not technically correct. Right? There's like, it's in your head. This is something called object relations in psychiatry. We associate things with other things. How do we relate to the concept of being a virgin or getting laid? What do we attach to that? I know plenty of people who think they're losers and get laid every day. And I know plenty of people who have never gotten laid and don't think they're losers at all. So we go through life assuming that the associations in our mind are true. And y'all can think for a second about who those populations are. Many people I've met with, absolute chads, never gotten laid. How can that be? How can we have these? So this is the key thing. This is not about objective truth. This is about what your mind produces. This is the associations that your mind makes. So oftentimes, if I feel like a loser, I have an ambition to get swole, right? But that drive to get swole is like, I don't like the way that I look in the mirror. I feel embarrassed about going to the beach, so I'm going to get swole so that I can no longer be deficient. So the ambition serves as an antidote to something that is missing within you. So this is oftentimes where ambition comes from. We're trying to correct something because if I can be a millionaire, then that means that I am good in some way. And now we can see why ambition doesn't jive with detachment. Oh, you may never succeed. Well, why does that matter? Why does it matter whether you succeed in your ambitions or not? It's because if I can maybe never get swole or if I can never get laid, then I can never be a winner. Do y'all understand this? The real problem isn't that you can't get laid. It's the meaning of that. If I can never get laid, I will forever be a loser. Do y'all see that? Does this make sense? I got to check in with y'all. Y'all got to tell me if this is making sense or not. Because otherwise I got to explain it again. Right? It's not getting laid that's important. It's that failing your ambition destines you to stay where you are. And as long as you are as long as this structure exists like this, there's no way to reconcile ambition with the possibility that you will fail. You can't do it if this is the logical structure. So what do we have to do? Break apart the logical structure. Separate out the moment that I am a loser and I am a winner. The moment that this becomes segregated from virgin laid. We're fixed. 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 So I can still want this. I can have an ambition towards this. I can work towards this. I can expend effort towards this. And I can even accept this may never happen. But I will be a winner anyway. See, when can you afford to throw in life? Right? When can we afford to throw? We can afford to throw in life. We can afford to fail in life when we can literally afford to fail. When I'm ahead and I can fountain dive or whatever, right? I can start teabagging or whatever kind of negative, toxic behavior in a video game. I can start feeding away kills when I'm ahead. When I've got stuff to give up. When I've got stuff to lose. That's when I can throw. So the whole point is you don't need to succeed in your ambitions if you've got some of that buffer of self-worth. Then you can afford to fail. And this is the hardest thing in life, is that being able to afford to fail is how you succeed. And we've seen this, right, in the entrepreneurship space. Like, I started a company. And I could do that because my parents could give me seed capital. Right? The earliest member of my board was like a senior VP of finance or CFO at like Microsoft or something like that. Right? So if we look at it, you can afford to take chances. You can afford to have your ambitions fall short when you are not dependent on your ambitions. When can you buy meme stocks or invest in crypto? When your bills are paid and you've got a 401k or retirement or whatever. That's when you can afford it. So the key thing is it's fine to have ambitions. It's fine to have goals. First of all, understand where does this ambition come from? Why did I develop this ambition? And even for a lot of people who have altruistic goals, I want to make the world a better place. Like, I think that's a wonderful goal. But you still have to ask yourself, how would I feel about myself if I made the world a better place? Would I feel like, man, I did good. And now my life is worth something because I've helped other human beings. And if you didn't make the world a better place, would you feel like, oh my God, I've wasted my life? Because if that's true and that matters to you, then helping other people is also about yourself. The right attitude, right in the sense that this is what I found works for me, is I'm going to show up and do my best. I have no ambitions. Like, sometimes I have ambitions, and anytime I discover I have an ambition, I try to get rid of it. Like, this is dumb. So even with today's stream, like I'm motivated by excitement, by showing up. Like we're going to have some fun today. And if y'all get helped, do I think it's going to help? Like if you ask me, like, do I think this is going to help? I would say yes. But I don't know if y'all can tell. I'm not trying to help anyone right now. That's not like what's in my mind. What I'm excited about is like, I like how this stuff works and I want to share this with y'all. I think this fucking stuff is cool. I love talking about it. I love unpacking this stuff. This is, in a weird way, it's a selfish kind of thing, right? It's kind of, I don't know if this makes sense. Like I'm doing this because it feels right for me, which in a weird way is the best way to help the world. Not to fulfill an ambition. Like it's like, oh my God, like I'm going to save the universe. Are Bhagwan, I'm going to be great. And it's like the more altruistic you become, it's so easy for ego to sneak in. So like just get rid of all of it. Like what the fuck, man? We don't want to deal with that crap. I'm going to show up. Maybe I'll play Dota. Maybe we'll talk about Expedition 33. Maybe we'll save someone's life. Like I am here now in this moment not to accomplish anything. Do I have an intention? Do I have a hope? Do I have an organizing principle? Yes, but no ambition. If I discovered an hour from now that I'm not even live and that my internet has gone out and that I'm just talking to a camera and y'all aren't even there, I would laugh my ass off. And then I would take the rest of the weekend off, which is what I'm planning on doing anyway. I didn't help a single human being. Maybe there's something I would have a conversation with the content team. Hey, can we salvage this in some way? Do we have a recording that maybe we can upload to YouTube? I don't want to waste my time, but it's not going to be like, oh my God, oh, I put all of this effort and it didn't work out. Oh no. Right? I'm going to hang out with my kids. I'm going to eat something good. I'm going to enjoy myself. And it's like, look, I did what I could. Right? We checked everything. We like tested everything. We fucking test everything every single time. And it always breaks every single time. Like, what can we do? So I don't know if this makes sense. Just like shift away from ambition. Look at yourself for a second. Where's this ambition coming from? What do I want to be? Separate these things out. Learn to be like happy in the moment. Be present in the moment. Just do the best that you can. So, there's a great, I'll leave with this last thought. There's a great, like, kind of principle in medicine, like in medical ethics, where it's kind of this concept of like a good Samaritan, where like if you're a doctor and someone is having a medical emergency and you try to help them and you're not like, you don't really know how to help them, but you do your best, like you're basically in the clear. Like even if things end up, if the patient ends up, or the person ends up dying or whatever, you're like basically in the clear because the medical establishment is basically like, look, we recognize that not all doctors are trained in all things. And as long as you kind of do your best, like that's what we care about. It's about what's your intention, not what's your ambition. Not what you tried to achieve. Where were you coming from? And the last thing I'll tell you, if you struggle with ambitions, the last very simple thing is in your mind, are you thinking about where you are starting from? And intention comes from here on out. Intention starts with you and moves forward. Ambition starts at the end and comes back to you. This is a goal. It's over there. It's not about where I am. It's about where I want to go. And so if you want to get rid of ambition, stop thinking about where you want to go and think about where you are. Could I have done better at helping y'all today? Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. There are 1,000 things I could have done to do a better job today. I could have read a bunch of papers. I mean, I read a lot of papers, but like there's a lot of things I could have done, but that's not what I'm focused on. What I'm focused on, like, this is where I am now. This is what I can offer right now. This is what I can muster up something today. And muster up something. Is it going to be the best? Let's be honest. No. And it's like, okay, well, that's what you get, right? This is the best that I can give you today. And the beautiful thing is like, when you do that, like this is the ultimate mindfuck, is that you end up doing really good. That's what's so confusing. The more that you let go of the ambition, the better you do. And people are saying, I see Chuck Clean is saying refund. And it's like, sure, you know what? I'll give it to y'all. Whatever y'all, the entrance fee for y'all to be here today, I'm going to just Venmo y'all back, okay? I'm not talking about YouTube ads and stuff. Ad revenue, I can't refund back. That y'all got to talk to the platform. But in terms of like what I'm charging in this moment right now, maybe we'll paywall this in the future. Who knows? So that doesn't apply to future paywalls. I know y'all. I know you guys are going to punish me for this. Right? You want to refund? Consider yourself refunded. Okay? No, so here's the thing. So Cody's saying, spoiler, you're the best. No, this is what y'all... Okay, I know it's funny, but seriously, I am not the best. The methodology leads to the best. That's the whole reason we're here, right? Is like, if y'all get this is like a different... It's like everyone's playing life with a certain kind of meta, and there's like a whole different meta that you can play life by. And if you like understand this other meta, it's like kind of OP. So if you are struggling with ambitions, recognize where these ambitions are coming from, recognize the associations with the ambitions, and focus not so much on the goal, but what you are doing here and now. That's how you end up as a bum at the age of 50. Look, man, I think that this is going to be like, so this whole endeavor is like the ultimate aged like milk risk. You know, here I am spreading all this BS. And then like 5 years from now, maybe I'm divorced. Maybe I'm addicted to crack or something like that. And then like everyone's going to look back and be like, oh my God. Or maybe I've become a spiritual guru and there's a sex scandal. Right? Like, and it's like, oh my God, we knew all along this guy was full of it. Like, that's what I'm terrified of. But it's like, hey, if we end up becoming a spiritual guru and having a sex scandal, like that's just the natural arc of brown people. I'll grow out my beard, grow out my hair, start wearing robes, get a ranch. We'll just complete the karmic cycle. And then everyone can judge, and you'll be a Netflix documentary made. And it's like, that's how you know you've made it as a spiritual guru, when someone makes a documentary shitting about you. But the cool thing is, that's what the rest of the world is going to think about me. But for those of y'all that are here, you guys know, I don't know if y'all know this, but if you talk to people who were there with like Rajneesh and Osho, and actually like were there when it happened, not the summary, not the edited documentary designed to tell a narrative and a story. If y'all are there when it happened, you know. You guys know what I mean, right? Y'all are here now. Even if I get into trouble a few years from now, you know, like y'all, you could still benefit from this. Okay? All right. Yeah. See, this is the cool thing. When you're witnessing it, it's not history. It's alive. History is what happens after it's dead. Okay. And don't worry, y'all. I'm not ambitious enough to become a spiritual guru, so we'll be okay. Okay, maybe one more.
Hey, Dr. K. Hope you're doing well. I just had a question. I have been struggling trying to get into a relationship. I've been single for 9 years now. Last time I went on a date was 6 years ago. Do you have any advice for someone that is struggling trying to find a partner? I feel like I've been chronically single for the past 9 years and stuck in dating purgatory. I've tried dating apps, speed dating, singles events, Discord, also just going out to bars. Ugh. I feel like I struggle with meeting women with the type of hobbies I have. Video games, movies, trading card games, just to name a few. I also don't have much female friends who could potentially introduce me to a partner. Over the past 2 years, I've been self-improving, trying coaching, losing weight, building confidence, which did improve my life overall. I've also been stuck in the dreaded cycle of deleting and reinstalling dating apps. This leads to burnout and frustration, and taking long breaks from trying to date. My full-time job and hobbies do help distract me from the dating burnout, though. I just feel like I'm stuck in my dating life. Love the YouTube content, by the way. Keep up the good work.
Okay. So this, unfortunately, is like, you know, people are saying like, ha ha ha, scripted. But I mean, this is the story of our generation right here. Is like, you can, you know, because here's the thing. When we say, work on yourself for dating. So like, oh my God. And this person is, right? So he's like, it sounds like they're exercising, sounds like they're developing themselves. They're like in coaching, like whatever. They're like putting their life together. And yet, like, this doesn't magically happen. So this is something that I feel like we sort of fail at time and time and time again here at HG. Because like, we're like, we try to talk about dating and relationships and like whatever, right? We try to help you all with this, but I honestly don't know the answers. So I think this is the one place where the world is just so different now. Like all of the normal systems that allow human beings to mate have fallen apart. We've lost third spaces. Genders feel terrible about each other, right? So a bunch of women feel like all men are dangerous. A lot of women have negative experiences with men. A lot of men feel like women are aloof and you can't, like, we don't know what to do. Like, do you ask a girl out or is that like predatory? So like, you can't like, you can just ask someone for their number. You can't approach women anymore, but they certainly aren't approaching you, right? So it's like, if you approach, then you're a predator. And if you don't approach, they're like waiting for you to approach. So it's like no one knows what to do anymore. It's a huge problem. So I do think that it's so interesting because in the voicemail, I heard a couple of things that I think are potential things to do, but I'll be the first to say that advice on dating may not translate. A couple of things that I have found is that if you are struggling to date, your platonic relationships become really, really important. And I think this is a huge mistake that a lot of men make when trying to date women, is that they focus exclusively on the romantic angle. So there's a lot of resentment about being friend zoned, being in the friend zone, etc. And I think it's like completely fine, you know, because a lot of people will also say, like, if you go out with someone and someone says, hey, I want to be friends, and you can say, look, I have plenty of friends. I'm not looking for more friends. That's a completely appropriate response. But I don't know if that actually moves you towards your goal. So I think that, I don't remember the precise statistics on this, but I think there have to be statistics that, first of all, a lot of women that I've worked with will develop romantic feelings for platonic partners of theirs, which I know is to the great frustration of many people who have been friend zoned and waiting for someone to change their romantic feelings. I know it's a bad strategy. And at the same time, that's how a lot of it works for women. Right? There are many women who, once they start to feel comfortable with you, once they start to feel safe with you, then they can start to feel vulnerable. Like I remember that, you know, I had a crush on a girl. We were friends. She was also friends with another dude. And then after a few months, she started dating him. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you know, because we all started out as friends. So like, it happens. And sometimes you're just on the short end of the stick. And that's how it is. So if you're doing kind of a couple of basic things right, I think the next step is really to engage in female friendships. I think this is the number one thing that most men lack. Engaging in female friendships does a couple of very important things. The first is that if you don't have a lot of experience with being around women, if the presence of a woman makes it hard for you to talk, if a presence of a woman makes it hard for you to feel confident, if you transform into another human being when women are around, or triggers all the 4chan incel narrative in your head or whatever, the first thing we need is exposure therapy, right? So spend time with women and then you will discover something really cool. Okay? I don't say this on 4chan. Women are just human beings. They're just human beings. Genitals are a little bit different. Hormones are a little bit different. Body fat percentage is a little bit different. Bone density is a little bit different. But for the most part, they're human beings. Basically the same. Most of us are the same. Got a heart, got 2 lungs, got 1 stomach, got 1 esophagus, got a small intestine, large intestine, descending colon, transverse colon, sigmoid colon, ascending colon. Like, we got all the same parts. We have a hippocampus, we have a limbic system, we have an amygdala, we have a nucleus accumbens, we have frontal lobes, we have occipital lobes, we have somatosensory cortex. We're basically the same. And then something cool happens, because once you start to spend time with humans and you see them as humans, then you don't see them as women. You see them as humans. And then that will change the way that you relate to them. It will change the way that you connect to them. And there are studies on dating that show that, like, men are much more likely to engage in transactional relationships. So we tend to think about relationships as transactions. And so I think that, like, if you're struggling to date, take a step back from dating and focus on friendship. Because there's a second thing that I found. I don't know if this is anecdotal or not. I don't know if this is sexist. But holy shit, there are so many women that I have in my life that love to set people up. Like, I don't like dudes. I've never had a friend who has been a male friend who's been passionate about setting up two people that we know. Never, not a one. So maybe it's my selection bias. Maybe it's the dudes that I hang out with. I don't know. But like women that I know, they're always trying to set people up. And I think most of the time they're terrible ideas. It's like, this is such a terrible idea. These two people, they're not good for each other. They're not going to find each other attractive. Like, it's not going to work. They're completely, like, they're a terrible match. But sometimes they still persist. I don't know why. Am I wrong here? Like, what's y'all's experience, right? So men and women in the audience. What are we talking about? Okay, so no, absolutely true, 100%. Okay, so like, this is the thing, right? This is great. Golgi baby, also wholly based. What an awesome name. Golgi baby, like, that's awesome, dude. Like, Golgi apparatus, like, cell bio, let's go. Right? So a woman can be as good wingman as a bro. I think actually nowadays women make better wingmen than bros. Right? So here's the key thing. The experience of women in the world today is that men are dangerous. That's the common experience, right? This goes back to the man versus bear in the forest. Like, oh my God. And it's like, oh my God, people got so pissed off. It's like, we got pissed off, we feel offended as dudes, but like, hold on a second, try to understand why they say this. Instead of getting personally affronted and blaming the women, let's try to understand what is it, like, what happened in your life where you'd rather be with a bear than a man? And then, you know, the converse of this, by the way, is like, as a dude, would you rather share your emotions with a woman, or would you rather share your emotions with a rock? And dudes are like, I'd pick a rock. I'd pick a rock. I feel more comfortable. I'm a fucking psychiatrist who's been married. I feel more comfortable sharing my emotions with a rock than I do. Like, that's why I meditate. Like, why do y'all think I went to India? I went to India to avoid talking to my girlfriend about my emotional problems. Right? So here's the thing. Thank you, Jula. Female friend is a green flag. Female friend is the ultimate accessory for a single male. And here we are, we're all so thirsty. We've been so polluted by fucking OnlyFans and whatever parasocial relationships and TikTok things and alpha males and whatever the fuck, that we didn't realize the ultimate male accessory is a female friend. And if you've got two, that's a bonus. It's like, wow, these women consider this man to be non-threatening. Like, that's a green flag. So this is where there's like, there's some, you know, we got to be careful about a little bit of these conclusions. But if you look at the way that a lot of male-female mating in mammals works, oftentimes what'll happen is that males will compete. There's intramale. Males don't compete. There's intramale competition, and one male will rise to the top, and that male will then be selected by a female. So the dudes like fight internally. But when it comes to like humans, things are a little bit different. And oftentimes I think what's happened is what a lot of men think is that they think like these reflexive wiring of I'm going to become alpha, I'm going to be number one out of the men, and then women will like me. They're like playing into this biology, which makes sense. It's like biological if we're talking about prides of lions. Like that works with lions. Here's the crazy thing. The cognitive difference between lions and wolves and humans is like kind of big. Like kind of like not even the same. There's no nation of dogs. There's no nation of lions. Like if we look at their cognition and our cognition, there's like kind of a difference. Like there's a difference there. And so now what's going on is not only is there a cognitive difference between humans and animals, I know it's wild, but there's also an evolution, a very rapid evolution of dating. So we have this like sub-1 birth rate in South Korea. That has nothing to do with like core biology. This is where if we look at human beings, the societal impact, cultural impact, personal impact of life on your mating choices is gigantic. If things were biological the way that many people in the red pill space think they do, we wouldn't see things like this. You can make arguments against it. I could make an argument against it. So the key thing is if you're struggling to like date right now, I would start with platonic friendships. And then you have a cool thing. Okay? So I had a buddy who was looking to date. And he had a couple of female friends. And so I told him, I was like, hey, bro, you know what you should do? Just ask your female friends, just ask them to set you up with somebody. That's a really good plan. But once in a while, it'll really mess you up. Can anyone guess what happened when I advised my male friend to ask one of his female friends, or a couple of his female friends, to set him up? What do y'all think happened? Well said. Yes, yes, yes. She got pissed. Oh my God. One of them got pissed. And they're together now. It's cool. Worked out. Right? It's like not that crazy. It's like, it's wild that y'all can predict that. Right? Some of y'all can predict it. Some of y'all are like, that doesn't make, that's surprising. Right? So it's like, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know how that works. Maybe she liked him and I have no idea. Maybe she discovered that she had feelings when she started to realize, like, you know, it's very like rom-com kind of stuff. But that shit can actually happen. Right? And I'm not saying that you should bank on that. Now, there's another thing that people are saying is like, so here's the problem with having female friends, is that if you have a female friend, the likelihood that a man develops romantic feelings for female friends is very high. So this is another huge issue that we have as men. So I just saw a interesting study that came out that Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is twice as likely or more in men than women. And this is like dying of a broken heart is something called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. So literally, and I think we did a video. I don't know if it's out yet or not, but there's a lot of studies that show that literally like the blood pressure changes, the cortisol changes, the inflammation changes in men are far greater than women after a breakup. 69% of divorces are initiated by women. People may think that means 31% are initiated by men. That's not true. 15% of divorces are initiated by men. 15% of divorces are mutual. So our biology is different. Okay? So here's the key problem, is that with men, when we form an emotional bond with someone, we equate that to romance, basically. So we are not regularly forming emotional bonds without romantic or sexual connections, unless they are parts of our nuclear family. So then what happens is we don't know that, like, you don't have to get the combo meal. You can order just the fries and just the drink without having the hamburger. We don't know how to do that. We've been ordering combo meals our whole life. And the second that you give me fries and a drink, I'm expecting that hamburger. Like, I don't know. It confuses me. And part of the reason for that is because dudes don't form deep emotional bonds with other dudes. And one of the big reasons for that is homophobia. It's like back in ancient Greece, being gay wasn't even gay. It was like apparently normal. It's like even if you're hetero, you do some gay stuff. And now it's like even if you hug another dude, that's gay. Like, what? So what started happening is we started limiting emotional, vulnerable contact with other men. And we sure as hell wouldn't like cry with girls in kindergarten. That's a mess. Right? And it's like locker rooms have become gay, which I think is terrible because like the whole point is that like a locker room is a place where dudes can be dudes without judgment. And the whole point is that it's, I mean, I guess if you're into it, maybe it's sexual, but I think the whole point of it is it's like a man cave. It's like man space where man can man spread and men can mansplain each other. And I know that a lot of dudes get upset, like, oh my God, we get upset that women complain that we mansplain. What the fuck, guys? Let's be honest. We mansplain each other all the time. It's not mansplaining. We just do that to each other. Anytime one of your friends says something, you correct them and you tell them why they're wrong. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's just something that we do. It's not directed towards women. We do it to each other all the time. 4chan is not the internet's locker room. It's some weird, I understand the analogy, but it's some weird perversion of that nice safe zone. Golgi baby, yeah. It's like a safe place for dudes. And then what happened is we started calling the safe places for dudes gay. And then we stopped going there. And then we stopped forming emotional connections. And once we stopped forming emotional connections, we didn't know how to form emotional connections without sexuality. And then every once in a while, is the other thing. We also had closeted homosexuals. And so then what happened is like a bunch of dudes like were going into locker rooms and they were getting horny. And then there were like all kinds of problems. And then the reaction formation towards that, then they avoided the locker rooms. They started projecting onto other people, calling other people gay because they didn't know how to manage those feelings, because they couldn't form emotional connections with people. You can't go to your homie when you're 12 years old and be like, hey man, I think I'm gay. Like we didn't used to be able to do that. Right? So then there's all this weird reaction formation going on. And then like, you know, I don't know. I got off track. Going back to this poor guy who wanted some help with dating. So I'd say two things. One is like focus on forming platonic female friendships. Number one. Will that work? I have no idea. Let's be honest. I don't have data to support that. But I think we have got like a lot of good kind of like theoretical extrapolation stuff. Having female friends is a green flag. It'll teach you how to be like, feel normal around women. And then if you feel natural and confident, that will increase your attractiveness to women that you're attracted to. Maybe you can ask them to introduce you to their friends or whatever. Like women will hang out with each other. You can start socializing. You need to socialize like a little bit more broadly. Second thing is this person is our traditional gamer. Loves hobbies like video games and anime and whatever. Tabletop RPGs, whatever. And like girls like that stuff too. I'm a dad. I live with 3 women. We all play D&D together. They all love it. Right? So girls can play D&D and enjoy it. It's our favorite activity. Both of my daughters love D&D. Now my wife loves D&D. Also, it's weird to DM your wife. Not something I was mentally prepared for. It's really weird. But it's cool. She like complains that I give her the shaft all the time. I mean. That's wrong on so many levels. She complains that I give her okay. No, I mean like literally she's one of these players that always whines about treasure. You know what I mean? She's like, you're giving our daughters fun magical items, but I'm not getting any fun magical items. And it's like, well, like she's kind of right, because it's like, you know, because like we've been married for 25 years and there's like a 7-year-old and I want to make my 7-year-old, like we put our 7-year-old, like, you know, we put the daughters first. So it's like if there's a good strawberry and a bad strawberry, we give the kid the good strawberry and we eat. It's not a Freudian slip. It's not a Freudian slip. That's like literally. And so then she thinks that like, you know, I'm giving her the shaft on treasure. And then then she's become one of these players that complains about not getting enough treasure all the time. And just to appease my wife, I cave as a DM and I just give. Now she has she's gotten 4 magical items. Like she gets the most magical items. I just give her extra magical items. And then that just reinforces the behavior and she keeps on complaining. So now it's it's weird. I thought I was I'm a good psychiatrist, I'm a good DM, but somehow this situation is getting out of hand for me. You guys get what I'm saying? It's really weird. So I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better. Okay. Don't cave. Yeah, I think it's and then but it's also challenging, right? Because the responsibility of a DM is to make sure that your players are having a good time. And getting good cool treasure is part of having a good time. Okay. Should we do one more, chat? Oh yeah, second thing I was gonna say is hobbies. I'm losing it. It's been a long week. Streamed a lot today. Did a lot of work. So other thing is that I think this is where expanding your hobbies is really important. So I got into art recently. Over the last 2 years, I've fallen in love with art. I didn't understand art. And I found that the kinds of connections I form with people is expanded drastically. So I'd say that just because you like something as a hobby, there's a learning curve to other hobbies. And if you get into other hobbies, if you get into hobbies that are not even women's hobbies, we don't have to get into, I don't know, buying makeup. You don't have to do that. I don't know if that's a hobby or I don't even know what a female hobby is. But getting into more gender neutral hobbies, hobbies that are not traditionally gamer hobbies, get into art, do some kind of physical thing, learn a sport, start playing pickleball. Do this kind of stuff. And so if you want to find a girlfriend, you have to go to places where girlfriends are found. Yeah, so Lily was actually huge there, by the way. By the way, speaking of Lily, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I have this in my office. I see this every day. So this is great. So I don't have a whole lot of things in my office, but I think I have a couple of, you guys can see, oh, where's that painting? You guys can see there are a couple paintings in the back. So I have 1 or 2 paintings from my kids, 1 painting from my wife, and 1 painting from Lily. And that's my decorations. And then these posters or anime Naruto things. And I've got a plan. I want to go back and paint something with Lily in a couple of years. I've got a plan. But I got to level up some first. I'm going to give her something that's worth receiving. And don't take that the wrong way. The first piece of art that I made was shitty because I didn't know how to make art, but it's going to be better next time around. That's not a green screen? No, that's not a green screen. It's not a green screen. That's real, bro. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, for those of y'all that submitted voicemails and you didn't get a good answer, my apologies. Okay.
Hi, Dr. K. In the past year, I moved to the US from Canada to get married. Due to that whole process, I had to quit my job back in Canada and have been unemployed for a year. I'm currently trying to find a job in my field, which is tech, or even navigate to a completely different profession if I can. But I'm struggling with what I think is a burnout phase. I believe it stems from trying so hard to overachieve when I was younger because of having strict Asian parents. You know how that goes. I think growing up this way, I developed a fear of rejection and I seem to get easily discouraged. It stopped me so many times from applying for jobs and putting in the effort to job hunt. My question for you is, how should I navigate starting all over again here in my mid-20s, and how do I stay disciplined and productive in my job search while not letting the rejections and a fear of failure stop me from trying? Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, this is great. So, really common problem. Right, so this is a case of someone who moved countries, has been looking for a job for a year, but seems like they're not like looking super hard. They say that they're experiencing burnout. So let's first understand, what do they mean by burnout? How do we know we're burnt out? So my guess is that they feel a lack of drive, lack of motivation, don't feel like doing anything, no energy. And so if you feel this, you think like, oh my God, I'm burnt out. Makes sense. And then we learn a couple of other things. Strict Asian parents, right? Pushed to overachieve. So here is the dream of the strict Asian parent. If I'm relentless with you, if I push you to overachieve, at some point, that'll set in. You'll get conditioned and programmed to always be a hard worker. And the cool thing is that sometimes it works. So when strict parents push you to overachieve, one of two things happens. One is that you get conditioned. You internalize the harsh standards, internalize high expectations. Right, that happens. Or something else can happen. You get stuck with external motivation. This isn't a case of burnout. I mean, maybe it is, who knows? This is a case of someone who was always externally motivated, right? So when this poor kid was a kid, and then there was like a book that they had to study, what pushed them? What moved them in this direction? The parents. Right? So there's no internal motivation. There's just outside pressure inducing you to action. And this happens all the time. So when that outside pressure goes away, the action goes away. Very simple. Your motivational system has been programmed to rely on external pressure to motivate you. If there is something in the environment that is pushing you to act, then you will act. So I think there's another interesting thing here. They moved and it sounded like they got married, right? So I wonder if another issue here is if they were single in the United States and had no means to support themselves, would they be motivated to act more? If there was an external pressure of lack of financial support, lack of home and place to live, then would they be motivated? Probably. I'm not saying it's bad that maybe they're broke and don't have money. Maybe their partner is broke and doesn't have money. Who knows? We don't know that. My point is that there are absolutely cases of kids who get programmed to be sensitive to external motivators. And so if you move to get married and, I was dating, my girlfriend supported me for a year, didn't motivate me very much. And then there are times where like in a relationship, like she quit working for a year and I was working a lot and that was totally fine, supporting things and things like that. So like reciprocity and being supported by your partner for a year, I don't think is a bad thing. I'm just saying that as a motivational system, if you have a motivational system that is driven by external forces pushing you to act, and you leave home and your parents are no longer breathing down your neck, and you have a partner who is kind and loving and supportive and is like, apply for a job. I know you'll get it in the end. There's no rush. So if there's no rush, there's no pressure. If there's no pressure, you don't act. So how do you stay disciplined? How do you develop motivation? You have to understand the difference between internal motivation and external motivation. So, this is wild. The first thing to understand is that if you are externally motivated, you cannot be internally motivated. You literally cannot be both. Okay? Now, this may sound confusing. So let me show you. Let's pull this up. No. Oh boy. Can I not find this paper? I gotta find the paper. Doesn't work without the paper. I look. Maybe we find. No, wait. I think I can find it. Hold on. Give me a second, chat. Yes. Saved. Here we go. Okay. I'm working on a full lecture about this, but I think this is the relevant part. Okay, so on what motivates, a detailed review of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Let's look at neuroimaging. Okay. First, extrinsic reinforcers have elicited amygdala, ACC, ventromedial prefrontal cortex, orbitofrontal cortex, ventral striatal or nucleus accumbens activity in healthy subjects, but was associated with higher self-reported extrinsic motivation, but lower self-reported intrinsic motivation. Here's the thing. I know I said a bunch of random stuff to you. I'll explain it in a second. Extrinsic reinforcers activate these parts of the brain. That's what y'all need to understand. Okay? So when we activate these parts of the brain, they're associated with higher extrinsic motivation. I'm motivated by things like my parents, by deadlines, things like that. Lower self-reported motivation. Okay, here's the key thing. Intrinsic motivation was associated with deactivation of the amygdala. Extrinsic motivation is associated with activation of the amygdala. This is another piece of evidence linking neural deactivation to intrinsic motivation. So here's what I want y'all to understand about motivation, first of all. If you've been programmed by overachieving parents, there's a part of your brain like the amygdala, which when it gets turned on, we are extrinsically motivated. When it gets turned off, we are intrinsically motivated. It's the same. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation do not come from different parts of the brain. They come from the same part of the brain. If it's turned on, it's extrinsic. If it's turned off, it's intrinsic. Wild. Now the question becomes, it gets even weirder. Okay? Gets weirder. What is intrinsic, or what is extrinsic motivation? Here's the next thing. Because for those of y'all that have been around for a little while, you'll know, what does the amygdala do? Y'all remember? What is the job of the amygdala? The amygdala gives us anxiety, fear, negative emotion. Now, here's the question that I have for you. When I ask you, are you extrinsically, if I were to ask you, would you describe anxiety or fear as an extrinsic motivator or an intrinsic motivator? Would you say that emotions are intrinsic or extrinsic. Boom. Y'all are saying intrinsic and you're wrong. Okay, let's look at this. This is wild. Let me find this. So, within this framework, environmental features, as well as an individual's internal state or memory, determine... This is not the sentence I'm looking for. Damn it. Okay, yeah, here we go. Hull's drive theory posited that all behaviors were performed to seek or avoid primary biological states, including hunger or pain. Okay? So basically, what we discovered about extrinsic motivation, so this is kind of like, it's so weird, is if we think about I'm motivated. Okay, so just think about this. Let's say I'm me, and I have overbearing Asian parents. What part of the brain does the overbearing Asian parent activate? Fear. Right? The parents are looking at me. Alok, no girlfriend, no video games. I'm going to throw you out if you do this. If we think about, I have a deadline. I have ADHD and I have a deadline. What part of my brain does this activate? My fear center. What is my most productive state that I can muster up is last minute panic. I work so well in last minute panic, and it's so painful. It activates my amygdala. I feel terrified, but then I finally get my shit together. Emotions, hunger, thirst are extrinsic motivators, not intrinsic motivators. This is why everyone's like, oh, how do I build internal motivation? How do I get internally motivated? And what they don't realize, I want y'all to understand this is really important. When I have fear, how does the brain solve for fear? If there's a monster chasing me, roar. I don't even know what that is. A monster chasing me and I run away. This is mediated. My responses to the environment. I am here. And there is a hot dog. Here. I can't draw a hot dog. And I feel hunger. Is this an intrinsic motivator or an extrinsic motivator? The hot dog alleviates the hunger. Emotions and biological drives are fixed by the environment. As long as you are extrinsically motivated, you will be a victim to your emotional circuitry. Your emotional circuitry, because when I'm afraid, so this is another great example of this, right? There's like the loop of loneliness and social anxiety. I'm lonely. I think it's internal motivation. Then I act. I go and hang out with people. And when I go and hang out with people, then my loneliness goes away. But then my social anxiety increases. And how do I deal with social anxiety? I leave this environment. The solution to my emotions is what is surrounding me. I am motivated by my circumstances. If I'm alone, then I'm motivated to meet people. If I'm with people, I'm motivated to be alone. So biggest mistake that people make with extrinsic motivation is they think that extrinsic motivation is about things outside of you. But really, all of our emotions are literally neuroscientifically extrinsic motivators. So then you may wonder, well, hold on a second. What the hell is an intrinsic motivator? Okay. Let me find it. Okay. I try again. Hold on. Bear with me, chat. Worth the wait. Here we go. Okay. Page 1802. Okay. Okay. Here's what constitutes internal motivation. So, in the mid to late 20th century, several models underscored the importance of novelty seeking, interest, and autonomy in driving intrinsic motivation. So, if it's a reward, if it's an emotion, if it's a change in your biological state, these are extrinsic motivators. If it is new, if it is interesting, and if you are in control, it is an intrinsic motivator. So I want you all to think about this for a second. If my motivational system is driven by extrinsic motivators, then when I am idle, what am I moved towards? Some amount of interest, some amount of novelty seeking, right? That's what actually internally drives me. So if you're someone who's like thinking to yourself, how do I force myself to get a job? That's the whole problem. So even if you think about the words, how do I force myself? Think about whether that is autonomous or not. Even in your motivational system, you are not practicing autonomy. You're the guy who's whipping the donkey, and you're the donkey. You're like trying to whip yourself into action. You're trying to whip the apparatus that is your brain and your body into moving in the right direction. That's not intrinsic motivation. You're trying to whip yourself. It's extrinsic motivation. Not going to work. Cultivating internal motivation involves autonomy, first and foremost. The more that you feel like you are exercising control in your life, the more naturally internally motivated you're going to be. If I tell you, read this book, the only way I'm removing your autonomy. Will you read it or not? That depends. Am I going to give you $1 million? Am I going to give you an A? Am I going to give you an F? Am I going to kick you out of the house? If I take away your autonomy and I put some external pressure, then you'll do it. But if I say, here's a bookshelf, take your pick, you are much more likely to read it. Right? You're going to pick. It is your choice. So internal motivation is about making your choices. Stop and think for a second about how can I exercise control in this situation? Not what do I have to do? How can I be in control of my life? Don't ask yourself what you want. That word is so tricky because many biological drives like hunger and thirst can turn into wants in your mind. Don't think about that. Don't worry about what you have to do. Don't worry about what you want to do. How can I exercise control? What can I do in this life? What direction do I want to move in? Do I want to be someone? So when I work with people, practically this is what it looks like. What do I want to say about myself at the end of the day? When I look back on today, what am I going to feel proud of? Not what is good for me, not what is successful for me, not what do I need to do. What can I look at myself and say, hey, I feel good about this. This is me exercising control in my life. So this is what I would say if you're trying to find a job and stay disciplined. It's not even about discipline. It's like, okay, every day, what are you going to be? What kind of life do you want to live? And then you live that life. Do you want to be someone who has applied for 4 jobs today? Do you want to be someone who has spent 4 hours doing what you dream of doing? Moving forward. And then you look back on that. It's not about the rejections, right? So the cool thing is this makes you impervious to rejection. Because rejection doesn't determine your motivation. Acceptance doesn't determine your motivation. You are living the life that you want to live. It is about the autonomous control of your life. So I'd be super concrete about what do I want my life to look like in this moment, at the end of the day, at the end of the week. Am I happy that I am moving my life in the direction that I envision it to go? Not what does the world need me to do, not what should I do, not what makes me feel pathetic. Anything that is emotional, any removal of a negative emotion is not in the right direction. It still traps you in the external motivational system. It's reinforcing that system. So it's like, what That's the bulk of it. It's about increasing your autonomy. The more autonomous you become, the more you will shut off your amygdala. And this is the cool thing. If you shut off those parts of the brain, I don't know if this makes sense. The default state of motivation for human beings is intrinsic. If we shut off the brain, intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation comes and messes up your autonomy. And that kind of makes sense, right? You're naturally, it's like we wanted to make AI to do our laundry so that we could make art, not make our art so that we could do laundry. Like, what? We were trying to develop AI to increase our autonomy, not further the current system, which has us trapped in doing rote behavior instead of autonomous creation. Right? So focus on autonomy. Think about, what do I want? What kind of life do I want to live? And move in that direction. Very practically, what I would do is set some kind of target for the kind of work you're going to do. So it's not even about finding a job, because that's externally motivated. It is about being someone who did the work that you can be proud of. It's like, am I proud of what I did today? Am I happy with what I did today? Can I look back on today and be like, you know what? I knocked it out of the park. Give yourself, and by the way, that emotion, that feeling doesn't even come from the amygdala. It comes from none of the circuits of the brain that are involved with extrinsic motivation. It comes from a different part of the brain entirely. Completely different system. It's not dopamine, right? So the systems of external motivation are also dopamine. Ventral striatum and nucleus accumbens is dopamine. Pleasure, craving, reinforcement. This is a more serotonergic part of the brain. This is more default mode network, not activated in extrinsic motivation. So decide for yourself, not for anyone else and not by anyone else. You decide for yourself, how are you going to live the next day of your life, the next week of your life, the next month of your life, and move in that direction. Even if you fall short, the more that you think in that way. So as you fall short, you'll notice negative emotions will crop up, right? If you set a target for yourself and you fell short, negative emotions crop up, you feel ashamed. If you give in to that shame, if you try to get rid of the shame, then you're still externally motivated. And then if you feel ashamed, you'll act. And if you don't feel ashamed, you won't act. It's a terrible way to live life. To require shame as the fuel of your action is like a lose-lose situation. So we need to disable the whole circuit. Be autonomous. So set a target that encompasses the life that you want to live. Then when you wake up in the morning, you're not going to feel like doing it. And then ask yourself one question. Do I want to be a person who does what they feel like or does what they intend? And in that moment, you can make that choice. And it's as simple as that. Not saying it's easy. It's as simple. What if the target is unrealistic? If you think the target is unrealistic, you are still operating from an extrinsic motivational system. You're losing the point, missing the point. Because realism or not realism is a measure of outcome. What determines the realisticness of it? The environment. You'll see that? It's such a brilliant question. It shows us how much we've been programmed in this way. Because we've been programmed. Why is everyone using ChatGPT in school? It's because school stopped being about learning a long time ago, and it started being about grades. You know, I once had a student who listed their coursework on their resume and the relevant things that they learned in their coursework. They had like a couple of classes and they said, This is what I learned in these 4 classes. Like they learned some cool stuff. They really liked the classes. They learned a lot. What do y'all think the advice was when we're giving feedback on this resume? Remove the coursework. No one gives a shit what you learned in a class. Everyone cares about your GPA and what you've accomplished, not what you learn. And it's like, when we have advice like this, what do we expect students to do? It's wild. It's like we blame students for like using ChatGPT all the time. And it's like, but like even universities don't give a shit about teaching. How much do universities pay teachers? Universities are grant earning machines and student fee machines, right? Like administrators make a lot of money in schools. Teachers don't. So where's our emphasis? What do we value? And then we're surprised when we've created a system this way. And then all of us, foolish humans who grew up in these systems, have been conditioned in this way, and then we struggle. And life is hard because I've moved to the US, I'm away from my parents, and I no longer have to do anything, so I'm not doing anything. You're not burnt out, you're free. And when you've been pushed to do a ton of things that you didn't want to do, and you finally have freedom, you're relaxing. Maybe we can call that burnout. So what is our solution here? Our solution here is to equip you with the understanding of how you work. And once you understand how you work, once you understand where external motivation comes from, where intrinsic motivation comes from, then I hope it will help you break the chains that like control your mind. And you're struggling against them, but you don't know how to break free. Actually, you don't need to break them. You just need to unlock it. That's all it takes. You don't have to break anything. Okay, I ain't no Daenerys Stormborn. All right, there's one last thing I want to show y'all before we wrap up for the day. So first of all, so I wanted to show y'all a couple of things. One is, so I think that like we're here to help y'all in this way. So yesterday I asked y'all a question. And I was like, what do we need to do to help you? And so we got a lot of answers. So this is pretty cool. So we built this course called Mind the Fundamentals. This is over on the membership side. So I want to show y'all how this came to be. Okay. So before this course started, it was this. So like, you know, like we want to make 15-minute segments, make it a 10-day course. Here are our sources. Here are our lessons. What do we want to teach? Like dangers of ego, right? Like, so a lot of the concepts that we talked about today about ambition, is it related to ego? What is everything that we need to put together for people? We have all these videos, right? So then there's like all these timestamps for like key points of information where we cut a lot of the stuff out, a lot of the random, Dr. K made a dick joke about giving his wife the shaft or whatever. We cut all that stuff out. Have to be here, right? And then there's like all these different kinds of like concepts and things like that that we kind of put together. Now, here's the cool thing. This turned into this. And this is what y'all need. This is our team going through all of Dr. K, talking about crap, to distill it down to, okay, like I know it's fun to watch me stream for 3 hours, but like if y'all need to get shit done and you want to like understand the key stuff, here's what you should watch. Here's the really cool thing. This came from this. Do y'all know where this came from? This came from y'all. So someone in the memberships community put together with their own free time and energy, watched all of our content, and put together this path. They're like, okay, here's the core path. Because people came in and people were like, there's like 7,000 of y'all. And people are like, I don't know what to watch. There's like over 100 hours of like lectures and things like that. Like there's stuff every month. So some dude was like, okay, this is where you start. Everyone should watch this. You don't need to watch the weird stuff. And then, by the way, you can like go to Q&A on this day if you want more about this. Like roots of tiredness. Like that's a good lecture. Like you want to understand why human beings are tired and what to do about it. This is a good one. And if you're interested in productivity, here are the 4 things that you need to do. You need to understand discipline, learning, and decision-making. Relationships path. Oh my God, there was a question about relationships today. Communication 101. Ayurveda, I don't know why that's in there, but whatever. Meaningful Friendships Part 1, Meaningful Friendships Part 2. There's a Q&A that has some good things that you should watch. Attachment Style, like parts 1, 2, and 3. There's like 6 hours of stuff on attachment theory. Okay? Social anxiety, and then there's some stuff about BPD. And then if you're like, hey, I like the weird esoteric stuff. Tantra. Challenges in meditation. Deep dive into perception. Weird stuff Part 1. Right? So like if you struggle with self-worth, if you struggle with emotions, if you need to understand yourself, and like you'll see that there's a lot of stuff that's like overlapping, right? So like this is cool, y'all. So we saw this and we were like, holy shit. We got you. Like this is amazing. We're gonna do this. We're gonna build this. And that's what we're trying to do. And even yesterday, y'all were like, I still remember, I made this, I saved the screenshot. Let me see if I can find it. I pulled a screenshot of someone made a comment, and I loved it. Nope. That's not right. Sort by type. Look at screenshots. Okay. I'm going to show you all the screenshot, okay? So here's the screenshot. If I'd know what I need, I wouldn't be in need of it because I'd find a solution for it. It's like, yeah, you're right. Okay, so we're going to do something about that. I don't know what, but I think there's something big there. Y'all with me? It's like, so what we do here is actually determined by y'all. It's like sometimes people are like, oh my God, like, why are they doing this thing? Like, I liked it the old way. Like, we saw people got really upset. Okay, this is wild. I'm going to tell you a cool story. People got really upset as we started transitioning away from Discord. And they're like, I don't understand. Like, why do they keep on changing these? Why do they like, Discord is great. Discord is awesome. Look, we love Discord. I love Discord. Also, Discord is the #1 reason why people do not join our community. Discord isn't what people love, it's what the rest of the world doesn't understand. So somewhere between 3 and 15 million people watch our content every month. There are 100,000 people on our Discord. Why do we have things off of Discord? Why do we have things off of YouTube? The #1 reason we do something that you don't like is because usually a larger number of people want what we are doing. That's the #1 compass that we have. Our #1 compass is works for y'all, not what works for us. And so like literally like this person showed up and made this. And we were like, this is great. This is awesome. This is what y'all need. This is how you organize it. So then we built it, right? We're like, okay, cool. Like, thank you for doing that much. We're not going to ask you to do like a ton of stuff, right? Like, so like you do what you feel inspired to do and we'll pick up the ball. And the cool thing is sometimes it even works. So I saw this, like someone posted this yesterday. It's like, I've been in coaching for almost 40 weeks. Somehow I got fit, finished writing a book, and released a video game. This is wild. I'm 32 and all my life I've been saying, I want to write, I want to make video games. I should really put my life together, and never actually did any of those things. I started coaching mostly out of desperation because of infinite therapy waiting times. It felt very nice to have someone to check in with me every week, talk a little bit about what I did or did not get done during the week, a little bit about my feelings. Now I lift my head not even a year later, and there's a pile of work behind me. I'm fulfilling my major lifelong dreams. I'm in shape, and I'm optimistic about my future, despite being quite effed due to years of sowing bad karma. Wild. If I were to say what the number one thing was I got out of coaching, I'd say absolutely discovering the power of consistency. I did not drive myself super hard. I didn't overdo it and burn out as I used to do. I was mostly just enjoying the process and moved step by step. This was posted 1 day ago. So we like woke up this morning and we saw this post. And that's what this is why we built it. Because I fucking know that if y'all you guys can do it, man. You can do it. This is not like, I've been wanting to write a book. I've been wanting to release a video game. I want to get in shape. And you think since this has taken, in so many years, you've made so little progress. So then you think, oh my God, it takes me 5 years to do this much, it'll take me 40 years to do that much. That's the whole thing is no. That's not how it works. It only takes a long ass time if you do it inconsistently, if you do it inefficiently. It can be done. And this is not like a plugged ad. This is some fucking guy or girl in our community who's been in coaching for 40 weeks who's just like, hey, this helped me. That's why we built this. Because in the back of my mind, this is what I talked to y'all about yesterday. In the back of my mind, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't know if watching YouTube for a year is going to get you to write a book and release a video game and get fit. Can watching my dumb ass stream do this? It can help. And for those of y'all that are like, okay, I still don't want to do it, fine. Can't afford it. We get it. 40 weeks of coaching is a big investment. There's a reason that we believe in it, though. The reason we believe in it is because of the thousands of people who go through the program. By the way, this is exceptional. Your mileage this is like probably in the top quartile for sure. Top 5%, 10%. But I don't even like, this is not what I'd be happy with like 30% of this. If y'all get to 30% of where this person gets to in 1 year, I'd consider it a win. Like that's an outcome that I'm happy with. If you're like, hey, I got a third of the way to fit, I'm 2/3 through writing a book, and I finished a third of a video game in 1 year, I'd be like, that's great. I'm happy with that. We're not even shooting for this. I think if you shoot for this, you're going to end up with something that doesn't work as well. It's like, this person's doing good. But that's on them. And so what we're working on now is like something else that addresses these problems of, I don't even know what I need. I don't know where to start. There's too much information. Some of it is crap. What works for me? How does my mind work? How does my body work? How do I be consistent? How do I be externally motivated? How do we be internally motivated? And like, I have read thousands of scientific papers over the last 5 years. Thousands. I go through like 5 to 20 a week. So it's like somewhere around 500 a year, probably. And like we're trying, because there's so much information out there, but it's like we figured out that if you are extrinsically motivated, it means turning on these parts of the brain. And literally All you have to do to be intrinsically motivated is shut off. You don't have to do anything. You just have to stop doing something. That's it. That's it. And the internal motivation will come on its own. Stop having emotions. And your intrinsic motivation will naturally rise. I know it sounds crazy. And you're like, but Dr. K, I don't. Numb emotions is not deactivation of the amygdala. That is activation of the amygdala with suppression. Completely different. And y'all are saying stoicism, Pog. Yes, that's what's so cool. So I think we can do this, y'all. Because the Stoics figured it out on their own. The yogis figured it out on their own. The big difference between the Stoics and the yogis is the yogis gave us a how-to manual that had a lot more practices. Okay? So what's the difference between a Stoic and a yogi? I will show you. The difference between a Stoic and a yogi is this. You all see that? Right? Like the yogis were like, by the way, if you want to be a Stoic, do this. And they were like, do this. And then they were like, do this. Right? That's the big difference. And so they figured this out. They were like, oh, by the way, imperviousness to emotions is great for forming direction in your life. And now we've got neuroscience. And now we have a third thing that is really special. Is we have, y'all, we have the power of the internet. We have the power of random people asking questions and people upvoting them. So how do we know out of all of these books that I've got on my bookshelf? You guys can't even see the bookshelves, but I've got hundreds of books in here. Out of all these books, how do we know which ones to pick? How do we know which questions to answer? How do we know which scientific papers to read? ChatGPT scraped the internet and learned amazing things. We can leverage that too. There's one missing piece of the puzzle, which is y'all. You tell us when thousands of y'all, when millions of y'all love a video, when there's a gifted kids or special needs, there's a video on that. We've got, by the way, got a banger of something coming up for y'all there, which is going to be fun. I'm really excited about it. I don't know when it's coming up. We're struggling with it. We've been working on it for a couple months, but this is cool. We're going to have some fun. Okay. When 7 million people watch that video, we're like, okay, these kids need help. These guys need help. What do y'all need help with? So these are the three missing pieces. See, in the past, this is what had to happen. You got to have someone who is an expert tell you what you need. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to tell you what you need. I have no idea what you need. You're going to tell me what you need. And I'm going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. We're going to build something that will do it for you. Originally, we started off with me offering what I thought y'all needed. And then along came chat. And chat told me, hey, we need something else. And then many years later, 5 years later, not even many years, it's like 5 years, like the blink of an eye, the history of humanity. What is this? Nothing. 5 years later, we've got thousands of people in our community, hundreds of thousands of people on our Discord, 100,000 people on our Discord, 100,000 people on our Reddit, millions of people over the world. Like, this is huge. And so this is the thing. Y'all are going to tell us what you need, and we are going to do our level best to build it. So right now, our major goal is coaching is great. Content is great, but there's something in the missing, something like this. Okay, so this is coaching, but something like this, something like this. This is what's next, I think. Right? So we're not sure that this is going to work. And for those of y'all that remember, so we have, hold on, let me find this. Yeah. So then we also have this, for those of y'all that remember. These were early versions. So we started off with resource packs. right? And like these are free. Maybe they have guide videos that are paywalled, but yeah, generally speaking, these are free. So like, but there's a difference between this and this. So the big thing is that this kind of had like, certain like reflections and things, but this is far more robust. We feel way better about this version of application stuff. Like the key thing is so the resource packs were, I don't know if this makes sense, but anyway, so the point is like we're iterating, we're trying to figure this out, but I think it's something in there, something about not just watching what Dr. K feels like talking about today or whatever random things were produced by his neurons on this particular day. It's sifting through thousands of hours of content, figuring out what works, figuring out a plan of execution, figuring out quests. So we have like our quest library, which we're still getting better with, right? So here's like a quest for, how to build a social circle. So it's like all like quests for, light quest if you don't have a whole lot of time, medium quest if you've got more time, and then advanced quest, which is awesome. This is epic. So this business, the voicemail that we had today about the internal racism, decode your inner social feedback loop. So like this will like help you break it down. Okay? So I'm done. I'm gonna take the day off. Dude, I'm done. I'm baked. I'm fried. But I had a blast. Thank you all so much for getting your voicemails. I wanted to answer, oh my God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 more that I wanted to get to, but that's okay. We fell short. And for those of y'all that submitted, thank you all very much. I loved this. So also let us know, like, did you guys like the voicemail thing? Because it's not, 2 hours talking to one person. It's like 15 to 30 minutes on 6 things. Right? So if you guys like this, then like, here's the thing. Please don't be upset that we didn't get to your voicemail. And please keep sending them, even though we'll never get to them. Because what we want to do, like that, there's just no way to fix that. I don't know how to fix it. We can't get to everyone. And if no one submits it, this would not, for those of y'all that submitted, like look at chat's reaction and look at how much people benefited from this. And I'm sorry we didn't get to the rest of y'all. I guess we'll do this more. I don't know exactly what's going to happen next. I never know what's going to happen next. That's the downside of this fucking philosophy of like, oh my God, live in the moment, act from here, don't think about goals. And then that has some downsides, which is like, what's happening at Healthy Gamer this year? No one knows. Right? And it's like, we practice what we preach, okay? At least we're good there. And some of y'all are understandably frustrated because that's not how the rest of the world works. The rest of the world is like, we are going to get 14% market share from 11% market share. And we want to continue to increase profits by 8%. We increased profits by 8% last year. We're going to increase by 9% this year. Their stockholders will like it. Therefore, we are going to put ads in the ad-free program. Now people are paying for money. And we'll put ads in the ad-free program because then we can charge $20 a month for ad-free and we can generate ad revenue. We don't fucking work like that. And that comes with some pluses and some minuses. So, yeah. Take care, y'all. Thanks for coming.